Well, about perfect timing, everyone. Hello and welcome to NAGP TV's continuing coverage, Thursday night coverage of this Season 23 GT1 Championship. Glad you're here. A couple quick news and notes for you tonight. First of all, we are racing here at Paul Ricard. For those of you who tried to tune in last week, you'll notice, of course, that there wasn't much of a broadcast going on last week. So some server problems, unfortunately, kept us from bringing you that broadcast in full. Turned out to be a wash of that race, so we have rescheduled here for this week. The second thing you may have noticed is that I am not Ken Rodriguez. Your regularly scheduled co-host will not be here tonight, so the quote-unquote on assignment is Ken Rodriguez here tonight. Fortunately, we have our regular co-host, Jack Ivey, here with us tonight. Jack, how are you?
I'm just great, Brad. It's good to be back. I know we had a little bit of technical trouble last week, but everybody's all set and ready for the big 3-hour opener tonight.
Yeah, indeed. So just now beginning to set the grid. As you may recall, a couple weeks ago we did run our qualifying race in which we set the grid order for tonight to start our feature race. This is, of course, it's the official opening of the GT1 class for this season 23, so you know, not everything on the line here tonight, but certainly all these drivers want to get off to a good start.
Yeah, and we got a couple of penalties. One in particular, Brad, Andre Pareto, he got bumped back 5 spots, so he really finished the qualifying race in 3rd, but he's going to start from 8th. Mikey Graytrix again, he got bumped down. Had an incident with Thomas Schubeck, so he's going to get set back 6 spots as well. So it looks like Mikey's going to be starting pretty well at the back. And that was really the only penalties we had. So it was a pretty decent qualifying race, and I'm looking for a real decent start to this season again.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a good time. And speaking of good times, I think we have a great track for some good times here tonight. Now, Eiran Parsons, as our viewers may or may not recall, a couple weeks ago, did a pretty amazing job in the Lister Storm, notoriously underpowered car. However, he may have turned some weather to his advantage, as we did have quite a bit of rain in that qualifying race, but nonetheless put that Lister Storm to very good use, not only actually capturing the pole in our Super Pole event, but capturing the win in the qualifying race. So 4 championship points to Eiran Parsons 2 weeks ago, and now faces the challenge of some 26 of his favorite competitors trying to hunt him down tonight.
Well, he was about a half a second a lap faster than anybody else in the race lap time. So, Brad, you're being the expert here. Is this car suited for long distance? What are the pros and cons with this Lister Storm?
Well, it is very well suited to long distances. The main reason for that is its fuel economy. So Eiran Parsons is going to have just a ton of options regarding his pit stop strategy here tonight. Now, we didn't cover this, but it is a very long race here tonight. So it is a full endurance event. It's going to run 3 hours, this race, and for that matter, it's worth mentioning as well that we will see some big gaps open up. And we'll get a little bit more into that, but the Lister Storm, yes, low on power, might suffer a little bit down the straight, and we'll have to watch actually this first lap and if he gets drafted into that first corner. But other than that, going to have a great opportunity in terms of pit strategy, Jack.
Yeah, that is one monster, that Mistral straight going back there. And one thing we noticed during the qualifying race and during practice, that little hump there where the chicane is taken out of this layout that we're running seems to have a big effect on miles per hour and on RPM as the guys go through there.
Yes, indeed. So some big bumps, and actually some bumps in some of these braking zones and acceleration zones as well. So car setup, I wouldn't call it completely critical here, but as far as the bumps go, however, there are some very important sections of this track, very slow track, some descending radius corners, very difficult to pick up those entry and exit points, and you're sure going to have to if you expect to run good lap times around here.
Yeah, that last combination, coming out of turn 8, the Village or Village into Tour and the Virage du Pont, the last turn onto the start finish. That's very technical, and I know that turn 9 is like a double apex corner there, and I've watched some of the drivers. They're struggling going through there, trying to keep the power down and keep the car, planted on the track.
Yeah, indeed, Jack. Well, we have just half a second here. Let's see if Marty Eiran is available. Marty Eiran, you're on NAGP TV. Do you copy?
Hey, Brad. How's it going?
Yeah, good. So we had a few minutes here as you guys are setting the grid. Now, you had a relatively decent qualifying race. I think that it ended up... oh, sorry. It looks like you ended up going to be starting 9th on the grid here tonight. But, it's a long race. I'm more interested really in what you feel your chances are over the course of the upcoming season. So you stepped into the Saline, pretty good car, overall going to be a good runner at the majority of the tracks. How you feeling about the upcoming season?
Well, it's too early to tell, quite frankly. You're right, though. I love the car. The temperatures at the track right now are going to be a bit of a challenge, especially for the rears on this kind of car. But trying to set up for it and basically, get your head into that zone where you give the car what it needs.
Yeah, Jack, you have anything?
Yeah, Marty, I know you're quite in depth in the setup there. On the back straightaway, we've got that bump there. How do you address that bump and the other bumps, as Brad mentioned, going into the corners? Is there anything special you do for a setup you can share with?
Yeah, it's pretty basic, especially on that straight. As long as the car's not in a turn, you can use the packers to a significant degree to keep the car from bottoming out. But it turns out at this track, it also bottoms out in those fast S's after the start-finish. And as we found out in the wet race, when you're on the packers on a wet track in a turn, it's in a rear-engine, high-powered car, it's not fun.
Well,
so are you going to set up in a mid-range kind of setup, hoping that if we get some changeable weather, you've got a decent all-around setup? Is that how you attack it?
Exactly. You have to find that compromise. So you take some of the packer out and you just basically let it bottom out, not too severely. And if it's wet, you hope you can hang on to it.
Well, we surely appreciate your time there, Marty. Best of luck tonight. Best of luck this upcoming season 23 as well.
Thanks, guys.
Go get him, Marty.
So, Marty, you're in. Again, step into that Saline S7-R or SR-7. Well, one of the two anyway.
S7R.
Yes, thank you. So, yeah, a very good choice, very good performer all around. And I suppose, unlike 2 weeks ago, these guys would be very happy to see more of the dry stuff as opposed to the wet.
Yeah, 3 hours in the wet, Brad. Yeah, I mean you've been at this racing a long time. Boy, that can seem like double that time in the wet, hanging on to the seat of your pants.
Yeah, certainly. So we have just moved over to the qualifying 2 session. Any drivers that are late joiners will have the opportunity to jump back into the server at this point. Then we'll be moving it over to warm up. And we'll have 5 minutes of warm-up, and then the green flag drops. Now, I was also going to mention, Jack, you brought up a good point about that distance, that 3-hour distance. Now, in some ways, it takes a little bit of a different strategy, a little bit of a different mindset approaching these 3-hour races. Yes, you want to be fast, you want to be consistent on track, you want to try to gain those positions, but it also takes quite a bit more. These drivers are going to find themselves, frankly, driving kind of by themselves occasionally. There's not going to be a lot of traffic around, and it takes quite a bit of a different mindset in terms of concentration, in terms of trying to keep yourself motivated and driving those clean, consistent laps around here for 3 hours.
Well, Brad, I took one out of your page from driving school, and I got to thank you again for hosting all the schools you do and giving us tips. Our Monday opener was 2 hours in wet track, and all I could think of, Brad, was you saying, you've got to be consistent, you've got to keep it on the track, and you'll move forward. And sure enough, Brad had one of my best finishes ever. So I think if these guys follow the same thing for 3 hours, keep it consistent, keep it on the track, keep it clean, they're going to move up.
Yeah, and by the way, congratulations for that Monday night GT2 run. That was a very solid race, and interestingly enough, last week in that GT2 class event, we were in France, and in France once again here at this Paul Ricard circuit near Marseille, if memory serves. So a couple weeks worth of the French countryside, nothing wrong with that, Jack.
No, in fact, that would be a beautiful way to spend the holidays, watching some racing in France. And this is the next best thing at NAGP.
Yeah, that's right. So quickly winding down the time here until we get to our warm-up sessions, and just about this time the nerves start really kicking in for some of these guys and kind of maybe elevating the concentration a little bit, exactly trying to recall what their pit strategy is going to be, try to perhaps change things on the fly as their positions may change. And for you, Jack, I know that you're a racer. What are some of the thoughts that go through your mind just about as you're ready to enter the warm-up and getting ready for that green flag?
Well, you know, the big thing here, Brad, I think is on everybody's mind is weather. I mean, we use a changeable weather mod here. They're all praying, they're probably all praying for dry. You know, we do have some guys who really excel in the wet, and they usually are praying for wet, but I think they're all praying for dry, and it's fuel, it's tire, do I have everything set, have I done my homework? And if you've done your homework, you're probably just saying, let's go.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good point. And generally, particularly in these endurance events, you can really kind of tell and separate the drivers that have done that homework and perhaps those that were slacking off just a little bit.
Absolutely. And Brad, I just want to let you know I am running, I'm watching on Twitch TV, so anybody who wants to throw out a chat, I can reply to you, and I got that there. And just to let you know, Brad, our feed looks fabulous tonight.
Okay, great. So, good pictures because they are not coming through on my laptop, but that's actually about par for the course, honestly. That's not uncommon for me to not have those pictures come through on my laptop. So,
no, you are broadcasting in HD quality tonight, Brad.
Wow. Well, look at that. Our viewers deserve nothing less, Jack. We're happy to bring it to them that way. So, will we begin our warm-up period here? Oops. Will we begin our warm-up period here? I will try to change the camera to something that makes sense. Let's make sure that we get our viewers recapped here a little bit on what did take place in that qualifying race a couple weeks ago. So it was Eiran Parsons, as mentioned, who took that win by some 13 seconds over John Luden, who also had himself a very fine race, just could not quite match the pace of Eiran Parsons as they slogged through that wet affair. Now, Andres Prieto did end up finishing third in that event, so the top three finishers did earn themselves some championship points. Eiran Parsons collected 3 for that win, John Luden took 2, and Andres Prieto took 1. Now, Jack mentioned Andres Prieto was going to be knocked down the field a little bit after an incident with David Poole, so lost some 5 positions. Andres Prieto will be starting 8th, but keeps his 1 championship point he has garnered so far. But really tonight it's going to be about the major points which are on the line. So our top 16 finishers will get paid championship points tonight, and that's what they're all looking for. Now, another quick news or notes for me, I think one of the stories of the night, Jack, was John Houston. John Houston had just a great drive in that Viper, and really showed his mettle, I would say, not only contending with the conditions, but a car that may not be at its best around this particular track.
You know, John is having, he must have been spending tons of time in the rig, off season, between seasons, because he has come out smoking this season. So I'm looking to see John. I'd really like to see John up on the podium this season, maybe even more than once, and good to see.
Yeah, well, I think it's a real possibility. There are some tracks which will suit the Viper very well, so the fact that he was able to put in such a fine performance around here in that car, I think bodes very well for the rest of the season. And you just never know. There are guys that pop up over the course of a season you wouldn't ordinarily expect that do make a charge in these championships late in the season. Some early on and then fall off, so it's hard to say. John Luden certainly was one of those last season in the GT1 class who hung right in there right till the end, but unfortunately it came apart for him at Le Mans. Could not quite cap off the deal out there at that track for our season ender, but in any event, not a guy that we would have maybe pegged at the beginning of the season for such a fine run. Of course, now everybody knows about him, and he will be starting here second on the grid tonight. So, great opportunity for John Luden coming into this season.
Yeah, he's had some good runs. You know, glad to see him up there finishing that race in P2. You know, he had some good runs last season, and just couldn't quite finish it out. So maybe he's got the distance, maybe he's got the feel now, you know, for running up at the front. It's not easy to run with you guys up at the front, that's for sure. You guys set a blistering pace out there, so maybe he's getting a little more comfortable and found his wheels beneath him.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case, and he had participated, of course, a bit before that, as we see David Poole coming into this very tricky pit entrance. These guys are practicing that pit entrance here in this warm-up session, and that is a very good idea because it is a very quick deceleration, kind of well turning, so on the brakes and turning at the same time don't always make for the best pit entries, but these guys will contend with that tonight. But quickly back to John Luden now. He did show some very fine speed before coming into last season's full GT1 season, and really did get it together very quickly. Hard to say, you know, if it's one of those kind of sophomoric improvements that some guys have and then find themselves dropping off, but certainly last week was a pretty good indication, 2 weeks ago rather, in that qualifying race for John Luden.
Yeah, he is one that I could say is definitely doing the homework.
Now it's interesting watching Eiran Parsons drive around a little bit here. I was fortunate enough to catch your broadcast a couple weeks ago. It was very interesting. I saw Eiran Parsons really using a lot of curbing there in the first sector, and I've been seeing it here again, watching him drive around in this warm-up session. We're about to tick over, by the way, to the race. Eiran Parsons using a lot of curbing, and that is a little rare, really, in this Lister Storm. Lister Storm really pretty solid suspension, does not like a lot of curbing, but Eiran has found a way to get it through those curbs, and obviously using them to very good effect with the kind of speed that he has shown.
I watched David Poole doing the same thing in early practice this evening, Brad. Boy, used a lot of the curb. Cars seemed to be bouncing around pretty good, but he was setting some blistering times out there.
Well, the time has run down on our warm-up period. Very shortly we'll be clicking it over here, and after another quick 2 minutes we will be on the road to this Season 23 GT1 opener. So we'll remind you quickly that NAGP TV is bringing you this broadcast, and we are all very excited to have you along as we begin this season. We will be here live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we do have a 1 hour earlier start time tonight due to the race length. We are going to run down your field order here tonight. Okay, Eiran Parsons will start from pole. John Luden takes second. David Poole will start third. John Houston takes fourth. Chris Moses is in fifth.
Rich Roman starts in 6th, and John Sportelli in 7th. Penalized, Andre Prado in 8th. Marty Eiran in 9th, and Andrew Werner, a good showing for him in 10th.
Al Marimon takes 11th. Matt Taylor starts 12th. Sergio Calderon had himself a nice qualifying race for 13th. John McIntyre takes 14th, and Thomas Schubeck is in 15th.
Jonathan Cuppett in 16th. Gup Douglas, 1 out of the points in 17th. Bjorn Heyman in 18th. Ryan Schleif in 19th. And John Waffen in 20th.
Mike Greetrex will start 21st. Alex White in a substitute role tonight will take 22nd. Mike Trussler starts 23rd. David Rowley in 24th. Paul Hall in 25th. And that is going to round out your field tonight. 25 starters on this track, Jack, is going to make for some pretty hectic opening laps.
It definitely is. I will be at the back there. I'm going to ride around with Paul Hall. Keep an eye on the view from the back of the pack, as you will definitely be watching the leaders and see who can get the hammer down first.
Well, it's certainly all over but the shouting now. So we have Eiran Parsons, who showed such great speed. John Luden has had lots of time in this extra week of practice here. I've seen him on the server a lot in that McLaren. It obviously has great speed. I was really surprised by David Poole's practice times, Jack. What are you thinking? Who do you like?
I would, we've talked about David Poole, who just can't seem to put it all together, and I would love to see him have a great season and get up there and challenge for the lead. So I'm rooting for Poole tonight.
Well, here we go to start season 23. And it is off the line nicely for Eiran Parsons, but even better for David Poole. He is going to have a challenge going into this tricky turn 1 complex, but not quite going to be able to get the job done, I don't think.
Pretty clean a start back here. We had one of the Corvettes do a big jump and grab a few spots, but it's still pretty clean back here, Brad.
So it is actually David Poole who jumps John Luden now to second. Oh! As it looks like that was a Saline which has flipped over. That might have been Marty Eiran going through the second corner, which ran a foul of some contact.
No, that was Andre Prado. Andre Prado on his lid.
Wow, so third place 2 weeks ago in our qualifying race. Got knocked back to 8th place, now with no doubt severe damage, Jack, and has some serious recovery to do.
Yeah, it was Prado off on the first corner and Jonathan Coppett. And Paul Hall's struggling too.
So it's now John Luden who has made a spectacular pass on the outside coming down that long straight and quickly eclipses David Poole's second place. So it is John Luden now up in second place, and John Luden is very happy to have that. I think he understands that he is going to have to make a quick pass on Eiran Parsons here if he expects to get out front and really put on some speed to gap that Lister Storm and its amazing fuel economy over the course of this race.
Well, farther back, it's really hard to believe right now. I've got Andre Prado in 24th, Coppett in 23rd, and the White Lightning, Alex White, in 22nd.
Wow, amazing stuff. Well, we will check all the action toward the back here momentarily, find out where all of our drivers are running as we start this race. But we certainly want to catch some of the early action up front here. Make sure we don't miss any of that. It looks like it's stabilized a little bit as we have completed just one lap now. So one lap in the books of season 23.
Yeah, they finally strung out a little bit, Brad, and it looks like they're settling down. First lap jitters out of the way, and it looks like they're all starting to get lined up and get serious.
So unfortunate to see that Andres Prieto problem. We will have to watch his progress back through the field. It's very fortunate, actually, that he escaped with that. With only damage, is still able to run. And that car was not obliterated because it looked like quite a shunt, really, from our broadcast pictures here.
Yes, and we had another incident there at the same first couple of corner complex there. Marty Eiran has put it off. He has dropped all the way back down to P18 now.
So it is John Luden quickly trying to look for a pass there, coming down that long straight. And I have to say, John Luden is showing some very nice speed in that McLaren GTR, particularly over that Lister Storm. So Eiran Parsons really has his work cut out for him, I think, in the twisties. And Eiran Parsons has a momentary lockup, momentary lag for Eiran Parsons. And John Luden almost got crushed by a stalled Eiran Parsons lagged out Lister Storm. It looks like he was able to continue, but no doubt that is going to put some damage into John Luden, and that aero damage, as we know, can be costly in terms of overall speed. Now, we should stay on this action just momentarily here as that battle has quickly tightened up over second, and Chris Moses, in fact, has joined that fray, well, momentarily anyway, for that second place fight.
Yeah, Chris isn't too far back now.
So Chris Moses
is only running a couple of seconds behind that spot.
Sure. So Chris Moses not really showing the best of speed, it has to be said, in that Panos. I think Chris Moses is going to have to try some alternate strategy if he really wants to challenge for the win here tonight versus some of these very fast drivers. But if anybody can do it, Chris Moses can, no doubt.
Yeah, he seems to get settled down and get faster and faster as the race progresses. So we'll have to keep an eye on the Pit Wizard. And a little farther back, we've got Rich Roman and John Sportelli. They're battling for P5.
Indeed. Well, we'll check out that action right now, Jack, but let's make sure that we find out who is running where. Aaron Parsons is in the lead at the moment. John Luden continues to run second. We'll see if that aero damage affects him. David Poole is in third. It has to be said, I think John Luden has a little bit of pace on David Poole at this point. The aforementioned Chris Moses hanging in fourth, but quickly... Excuse me, sorry, I saw that action a little further back. You were cataloging, Jack, between Rich Roman and John Sportelli, and we see John Houston right behind these guys fighting tooth and nail for that fifth position.
Absolutely. You know, we've got Roman is pushing really hard. He's getting up on the curbing. Sportelli's trying to answer back. We got Werner right behind him, so we got some good battles going on there. And a little farther back, not too much farther, Calderon and Al Merriman are lockstep with John Wathen, so we got a good three-way battle going there too.
Yeah, indeed. I think John Sportelli really is looking for a little bit of revenge. I don't think he had the qualifying race he was really looking for. The weather certainly seemed to affect his Lamborghini in that race. So it is John Sportelli now in the sixth position, coming once again through that turn one complex. John Houston is in seventh after he had started all the way up in fourth. Andres Prieto got knocked back from his grid position, so John Houston taking that fourth grid position. Andrew Werner has shown some very fine pace. Now, we didn't see Andrew Werner in that... Oh, we did see him in the... Well, I can't remember. In any event, Andrew Werner is in that Ford GT1, and I didn't see a lot of practice times. I guess that's what I was getting at, Jack. He did not put a lot of times in the week of practice, so didn't get an opportunity to see what kind of times he was running. The whole point of that exercise is that he has shown some very good speed, as we see a pass now on the outside by John Houston into this very fast right-hand sweeper, and I think he is going to get the job done over John Sportelli. So nice pass there, John Houston to sixth.
You know, there is some great battles going on here, Brad. It's going to be hard to try and get all these guys the loving they need on air, but we've got Wathen in 10th, and Calderon is all over his tailpipe in 11th, and Big Al Merriman has joined that fray. There is three cars battling it out, and Ryan Schleif is picked up into P13 now to join into that battle. We got a great four-way battle going on here.
Well, I'll force myself to continue back through the field, as we do have that great fight going on over fifth place. So it is Matt Taylor there in ninth. Now, Matt Taylor started 12th, has some damage to the front of that Saline on the left-hand corner, as you can see. John Wathen, as we see, Sergio Calderon now does have a spin coming off the last corner. Very nicely judged there by, I believe that was not Matt Taylor, but rather Ryan Schleif. Nice evasive maneuver there by Ryan Schleif to avoid that contact. But in any event, bad news for Sergio Calderon. He will now have to try to pick up spots here on track. John Wathen running a very nice 10th place at this moment. So John Wathen, recent struggles there, particularly in that GT2 race. Whoa, as he nearly loses it going into turn two. Gets it very nicely managed there, really, to save that car. Al Merriman does run in the 10th position, followed closely by that Ryan Schleif Corvette.
And right in behind Schleif, we've got Alex White has picked up his boots, just gone by Gup Douglas, who spun it wide, and is now Alex is in P13.
Yeah, certainly a driver not yet mentioned, but a driver one to watch for nonetheless is Alex White in that substitute role. So a two-time GT2 champion. We know that Alex White certainly has the speed. We'll have to check here before too long on those lap times and see how those lap times do compare with the leaders. But of course, Alex White having to work his way through traffic at the moment, that'll slow him down a little bit, as we see Gup Douglas now running 14th.
Yep, I'll get over to some lap times for you in just a second there, Brad.
So Gup Douglas holding down the 14th position in that F550 Ferrari. Should be a pretty good performer around this track, and will certainly have very good speed down that massive straight. But another car not to be outdone on the straights is that Nissan GTR. Thomas Schubeck running 15th, and at the moment really giving Gup Douglas all he can handle. I do see some action just further up. Now, John Wathen, we had just seen him running in the 10th position, but now back to 12th. So John Wathen losing a couple quick spots here, one of them actually to a temporary teammate excuse me, to Al Merriman and, of course, Ryan Schleif, who has now moved into the top 10. John Wathen, I think, will give some room to Alex White. Not quite. Perhaps John Wathen taking Alex White, even in a substitute teammate role, a little bit to task here, and saying, well, I know that you're fast, but I'm the lead driver here tonight, as John Wathen now tries to put a pass on to Al Merriman going into turn 3 is not going to work.
Boy, a little contact there with Alex White.
Yeah, indeed. Sorry, Jack. I was so intent on recapping the action.
That's okay.
Yeah, as
That's all right, Brad. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, Brad.
Certainly, as we see Gup Douglas take over that 13th position. So John Wathen quickly back to 14th. He will have to get settled back down. So Marty Eiran, you cataloged him running into some of that trouble there on the start. Or rather, it was Andres Prieto. So Marty Eiran in some type of trouble himself. We will get to, of course, Andres Prieto and the sister Saline, but for now it's Marty Eiran in the 15th position, showing damage actually on the front and rear of that Saline. Thomas Schubeck now back to 16th, I suspect, passed by Marty Eiran, who is showing pretty good speed, as we might imagine. Very fast driver there. So it is now David Rowley
Up front, Brad, sorry to jump in. We have a new leader up in front. We've got John Ludden, who is taking over the lead here.
Thank you, Jack. We'll check back in on that action momentarily, as Andres Prieto now working his way back to 18th, and you know that he has some significant aerodynamic damage on that car. That will hurt his overall top speed. And Sergio Calderon, running so nicely up there in the top 10, now has slipped back to the 19th position, also showing some damage on that Lister Storm. He'll be looking forward to getting in the pits and getting that fixed. Mike Trussler now in the F40, looking very sharp in 20th position at the moment. That F40 also tremendous straight line speed, will no doubt be putting that. Oh, and Gup Douglas has gone off and is stuck in the kitty litter at the moment, so that puts Trussler at 19th. Paul Hall in the other McLaren now running 20th. I believe that's Mike Greetrex, rather, in the 21st position now. And Jonathan Cuppett in
Gup has parked it. He's parked it for tonight.
Oh, so that must have been terminal damage on Gup Douglas's F550, perhaps smacking the wall just a little bit too hard there. And that has got to be a pretty serious disappointment. Gup Douglas running well and truly up into the points before that early accident. Bjorn Hemmen now in the 23rd position, as looking for Andres Prieto. We might actually have missed him as he was making a pass and we were cycling through our running order. Now it is, as mentioned by Jack Ivey, John Luden taking over that first position. But for now, Jack, it looks like Aaron Parsons is staying pretty close to his rear spoiler.
Well, John Luden has got some 143s listed. He has got some pretty good times, very low 144s. And Mr. Parson is very consistent. His lowest speed is 144, 164, but he's running mid to high 44s. So it looks like, just on lap times alone, Brad, it looks like Luden might have some pace there.
Well, you know, it certainly does look like it's on track pace, Jack, but I tell you this right now. Well, first thing is he will get a help here in the draft. If he can stick close to John Luden, he certainly will gain some speed sitting behind him and his draft. I can tell you also Aaron Parsons is running a very low wing. That'll increase that straight line speed and maximize it for the Lister Storm. But Aaron's real advantage here is going to be, again, on fuel economy. So Aaron Parsons' lap times might be hidden a little bit by the fact that he was trying to drive to a particular lap time and save enough fuel so that he can possibly run this event with one less stop than the rest of these drivers. Very doable here in the Lister Storm, Jack.
Well, you know, that is huge. If he can knock a stop out, that is absolutely huge. And if he can even stay close to John, that one less stop is going to play right into this. But, you know, as we talked about John Luden earlier, I don't know if I was John, if I would want Mr. Parsons on my tailpipe for 3 hours.
Well, I would say that, you know, last season, John Luden's perhaps racecraft might be a little bit in question, how he might do in traffic, you know, if he gets rattled or not. I think certainly if he did last season, those concerns have been erased at this time. He looked to me having the opportunity to run with Mr. Luden, and it was a nice opportunity for me to run with him. He was very good in traffic, very calm, didn't tend to do too much mirror driving, so at least he's got that going for him. I think that he does know he's going to have to try to open up whatever gap that he can and try to gain seconds over Eiran on track, as at the very least Eiran will certainly save some time in the pits on fuel. As John Sportelli now looks like he has made a pass on Andrew Werner for the 7th position, so Andrew Werner having some trouble over the curbs. And this fight's still very close, very early in this event yet, but still some very close action out on this Paul Ricard circuit.
Yeah, you know, we've got Roman and Houston down on the outside on the straightaway there. It looks like he's going to get it done.
Yeah, John,
and put the pass on Mr. Roman.
Yeah, we just caught that. I think Rich Roman had a lot of trouble coming off that curbing onto the straight, as now we see John Houston have some trouble himself coming into that right-hand sweeper. And this is a tough, tough corner to go side by side. I think Rich Roman will lose out here on this. Yes,
whoa.
Indeed. Yeah, there is so
wow. Boy, oh boy, that is some exciting driving there.
It is indeed, and there is so little grip on the outside of these descending radius corners. It was kind of already written. I think Rich Roman was going to give up that position, but it looks to me John Houston really struggling in some of these twisties, as you might imagine, in that Viper. Not the nimblest of cars, but I have to say I was very impressed with its straight line speed. The Nissan GT-R is all but the Viper's match. So again, I think Rich Roman getting off onto that straight had a little problems, and John Houston for the moment took advantage. But in any event, Jack, it is John Houston back up into the 5th position, so he got shuffled back a little bit on the start in 7th, but now finds himself back into 5th.
And he is working hard to maintain that 5th position.
Boy, he really is. Now, one guy I think perhaps the questions are still out on a little bit, a guy that might still do a little bit of mirror driving, maybe get a little anxious running up in these positions, could possibly be John Houston. Now, he has put in some very fine results, but mostly in GT2, not quite what you could call a GT1 veteran at this point. So, still perhaps looking at Rich Roman in his rearview mirror just a little bit. And as I'm watching, Jack, I can see Rich Roman not gaining time in the Viper's draft. So John Houston carrying a lot of speed down that straight.
Yeah, just not close enough for Rich to take advantage of the draft there. Just it needs to be just a couple car lengths closer. But boy, he sure picks it up in these twisty bits.
Yes, he does. And it's going to be interesting to watch this battle throughout the race as well, as that Viper does also get extremely good fuel economy. The Nissan GT-R does not. Let's just put it that way. So advantage to John Houston on the fuel economy battle. So just a little further back now, Andrew Werner continues to fight with John Sportelli. And Andrew Werner really has, well, he has picked up a few positions. Started in the 8th position, so maybe only 1 or 2 positions here, but being hounded by John Sportelli, who I have to say I'm a little surprised has not made more inroads into this field yet. Well,
with Rich Roman and John Houston having their own little battle, although they're still running at a good pace, as we get a little farther back, Werner and Sportelli are right close to that action too, so we have got a 4-way battle for that 5th spot.
Yeah, indeed, and I tell you, not too far behind those guys, Ryan Schleif and of course Matt Taylor are closing in too. So I have to say at this point, I think perhaps that these battles are coming together a bit, because John Houston is a little bit off the pace at this moment, and allowing these guys to all come together just a little bit. Now, I did want to quickly get to Andres Prieto, and here we do find him in 14th now, trying to hound down Thomas Schubeck. Now, Thomas Schubeck has picked up some positions. He was barely holding on to the points the last couple times that we checked into him, but now currently running 13th, so well and truly up into the points, but he is going to have one heck of a task holding off a hard-charging Andres Prieto in his Saleen.
Yeah, and just ahead of those guys, is Al Merriman, and Al's doing a great job. He's sort of running his own race right now. He's by himself. in P12. So having a decent start to this big 3-hour race is the boss Al.
Yes, and we did talk about it a little bit. These gaps will open up over the course of this race, and honestly, I have to say I'm kind of surprised that these guys have been in such pitched battles really for as long as they have. And as we see Andres Prieto go for the pass now, Thomas Schubeck got hung up to the outside, but I think Thomas Schubeck understood that there was quite a bit of speed differential there in lap times and decided discretion is the better part of valor. And exactly as you mentioned, Jack, Thomas Schubeck, I think, is trying to run his own race despite having those positions right around him. He knows that this race is for the long haul and will be looking to maximize his points. He feels that's the best way to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not. And you know what? His car looks clean. He stayed out of any of the damage, any contact. So, he's not going to give up too much with the aero damage at this point, and all he needs to do is run, straight and clean, and he will move up from P13.
Indeed. So we'll check back quickly here a little through the field, find out where everybody's running, and then get quickly back up to that 5th place battle. So it's John Wathen, who is still in that 14th position. Last time we saw John, he was running there after a couple just quick mistakes. David Riley finds himself in the 15th position, has a quick off and on. I think he actually is going to... Oh, he gave up a position to Sergio Calderon, but more than that, actually smacked the wall coming onto this very long straight. So having some troubles on entry to this straight, gave up a position not only to Sergio Calderon, but Mike Trussler. So David Rowley finds himself quickly out of the points. Paul Hall will get by as well. And that is a bad place to have a mistake and losing all that speed coming onto this very long backstretch where all your competitors are running close to 185 miles per hour.
Just a quick update here. Matt Taylor has already been into the pits and out of the pits now, and we've only gone through 11 laps, Brad.
Well, that is an interesting move, Jack, and you have to assume that that is a scheduled stop. I think that he has elected to take an early stop. We didn't see a lot of damage on that saline, so there's no reason to assume that he has run afoul of any type of trouble out there, needed repairs. So an interesting strategy by those guys. It leads me to believe... Now, Jack, Andres Prieto, knowing him, he tends to like to run longer into stints. I think we might see him pit about 11 laps from the end, Jack.
We'll keep an eye on that and see how you fare out on that prediction.
So it is Mike Greatrex now in the 19th position. His car looks very clean as well, and I suspect Mike is kind of looking forward to running kind of his own event here as well. He has a little bit of traffic in front of him. No doubt he would like to make the on-track passes if possible, but knowing Mike the way I do, I think he'll try to be as careful as he possibly can working that traffic. Jonathan Cuppett finds himself in 20th now. Jonathan Cuppett had himself a fine outing in GT2 on Monday night, but finds himself languishing a little bit here in the field in that 20th position early here tonight. Bjorn Hemmen has picked up a couple spots to 21st, so that McLaren looking very clean at this point as well. And Matt Taylor, don't know what happened to... Oh, well, Matt Taylor, you cataloged his pit entry. That was Matt Taylor, yes, Jack?
Yes, it was.
I get confused sometimes. Thank you so much. Marty Uren now. This is surprising. Marty Uren finds himself back in 23rd. That is not where Marty Uren was running, so I wonder if Marty Uren has run afoul himself out there on track, or maybe has made some type of early stop. I kind of doubt an early stop in this case, however.
Well, he is, we got a posted 2:37 lap, so it may be that Marty has come in and maybe getting some of the damage fixed, maybe getting a bit of fuel.
Well, it certainly makes sense. If he did have a pit window open to dive in and get those repairs fixed, I was kind of wondering if Andres Prieto, though he does generally like to take it late into races on those final stops, may elect to pit a little early, as we see Alex White all the way up to the 7th position now, looking to make a pass on Rich Roman.
Yeah, he is a man possessed right now. He has gone from 22nd. He is now into P6.
You know, I have to say I'm a little surprised by the speed of the Nissan GTR coming down that long straight.
Wow!
As he does make the pass back on Alex White. I think Alex White.
He blew by him like. Boy, I can't believe how fast he went by him on that corner and made it stick too.
Yeah, I think Rich Roman was willing to take a few chances going into that corner to try to make the pass back, and it certainly worked out for him. Rich Roman taking it very deep and on the inside. I think Alex White was being very cautious there, so Rich Roman back in front as that battle continues to shape up over the 5th place. John Houston now under all sorts of pressure from all sorts of drivers here at the moment. Andrew Warner, of course, in that battle, still followed closely by Ryan Schleif, and John Sportelli finds himself back now in the 10th position. So I have to think something happened to John Sportelli and has made a mistake allowing those other drivers through.
Yeah, you know, we've got a 6-car battle for P5.
So Alex White trying to make a move through a very difficult turn 3. Actually has to back off. I think got the entry just a little bit wrong over Rich Roman. Now, if there's a guy who is not going to be rattled out there on track tonight, it is Rich Roman. So don't expect to see him make any mistakes due to pressure put on by Alex White. But this is really where Alex White did his damage last lap. And we'll see if he's able to do that again. I was going to mention before we saw that action, that repass by Rich Roman, I was surprised to see the lack of speed down the straight by that Nissan GTR. So Rich Roman maybe adding a little bit of rear wing for these twisty bits. Alex White does have a very good run on him.
Having a good look on the inside.
Well, I have to say, as we watch this very intense action... Yeah, as we watch this very intense action, Jack, I think if I'm John Houston, I really think about maybe letting these guys go as I watch them fight for these positions. I think John Houston is costing himself a lot of time out on track trying to hold his position and defend very aggressively. I think it's costing him quite a bit of time at this point. It might be discretion here, the better part of valor, as he will be able to take a very nice advantage of some fuel economy in the pits and make these passes back out on track just through pit stops, Jack.
I agree with you, but you know what? There he is. He's running in 5th spot, and the competitive nature is, I don't think it's going to allow him. He can't allow himself to do that.
Well, it's hard to fault a guy for that. You're absolutely right. I will say this, though, at the same time. Alex White looking for that turn 3 move again. I think this time he thought better of it, as the last lap he got it a little bit wrong, lost quite a bit of time. I will say also for John Houston again, not ordinarily, not, well, I'm not going to say he's not comfortable, but he's not used necessarily, as Alex White is going to get a very good run coming onto the long straight this time. I think Alex White will make the pass pretty easily here, coming down the long straight. I will finish up quickly with John Houston in that he could have a little bit of lack of experience. Oh boy, did I just do that? I did. Shoot. That's where we wanted to get to. Indeed, Alex White has made the pass pretty easily on Rich Roman. We'll see if he can make it stick, as Rich, as we've cataloged, showing some very nice speed through the twisty bits of this track.
You know, and right behind Roman right now, we've got Werner and Schleif, and right behind him is Sportelli. So this is a little bit of a freight train going around here, and I think John Houston is playing the engineer of this freight train tonight.
Well, let's not by any means take anything away from John Houston. Certainly putting in a very fine performance and holding his position very well. So we don't want to detract anything from that. And I think that should he manage to actually keeping as many competitors as he can behind him at this point actually might not be a bad idea, as we are starting to get relatively close to some pit stop windows. As many guys as he can hold behind him for as long as he can is certainly going to help later in this race to reclaim some of those positions.
Yeah, you know, John's having a great race and probably loving every minute of it, so go for it, John. It doesn't matter if they've got pace on you. They're behind you. Drive your own race. Away you go, boy.
Yes, well, we do want to make sure we quickly get through the field, and we don't want to miss out on where your favorite driver is running at the moment. just keep a quick eyeball here down this straight. Alex White has shown very good speed, but boy, just cannot make too many inroads in on the Viper.
You know, we've got our race going on farther back, as you mentioned, back in the field. You know, Paul Hall and Mikey Greatrix. Mikey just putting a pass on him, going through the S's after the start-finish there. So we've got some good battles going on a little farther back. Matt Taylor is still back in P21 after his early pit stop.
So it is Alex
and
White.
And poor old Marty. Marty's still back in 22nd.
So it is Alex White now through to that 5th position over John Houston. Andrew Werner continues to run 7th. Well, Rich Roman runs 8th. Ryan Schleif is in that 9th position, still embroiled in that very tough fight here early in this running, and some nerves going on for these guys. They definitely want to run clean and not jeopardize the rest of their race. John Sportelli, I think John at this point is really kind of just relaxing and seeing how this plays out. Not ordinarily in his nature, and I would almost never say that about John Sportelli. However, in this case, I think he is really just kind of trying to let this sort out just a little bit, get some clear track at some point, and really start laying down the laps. Now, Al Merriman continues to run on his own in the 11th position. And last time we checked in on Al, actually, I think he was running 12th, so perhaps a position gain.
He was running, yeah, he was running 12th.
So it is now Andres Prieto in the 12th position, who will try to make some inroads on Al Merriman, and I think I saw the gap on track out there about 4 or 5 seconds, so Andres Prieto will continue to make that hard charge. Thomas Schubeck continues to run 13th, John Wathen in 14th. These guys have settled down and kept their positions pretty static. In fact, looking on track, I would say that that gap is about the same as it was last time we checked in. So Sergio Calderon runs 15th, and still damaged that Lister Storm, of course, has not made it into the pits for that to get that damage fixed. I'm sure he'll be looking forward to that. Jonathan Cuppett. Well, Jonathan Cuppett, last time we saw him was actually down in the 20th position, I believe it was. So Jonathan Cuppett now in the points here early in this event. So a nice move up here recently for Jonathan Cuppett. And I suspect...
Yeah, and Jonathan is nipping away at the gap between him and Sergio. So he's seeing the position ahead of him and biding his time and just nipping away at it ever so slightly, pulling a couple of tenths off every lap.
Yeah, and he will have a bit of a fuel economy advantage over... Or no, not Sergio Calderon. Forget I said anything. Just strike that from the record books. So... It is Bjorn Hemmen now, excuse me, in the 17th position, native of South Africa. Mike Greatrex does continue around in the 18th position, and what a tough night for this team, Mike Greatrex and Marty Urin. Marty Urin having some trouble early and just never quite being able to recover, so I don't think Marty Urin is a lap down yet, but he may be. Paul Hall, haven't had a chance to view or talk about Paul Hall a lot tonight, but Paul Hall running that McLaren F1, as you could see.
Yeah, you know, and I was just checking on Marty's car, and Marty's car looks pretty clean. Paul Hall's car looks pretty clean as well, so, you know, they're not suffering from damage, but they got a long way to go.
Yeah, indeed, long way to go. So Matt Taylor actually can see that McLaren up in... Oh, as we see Mike Greatex has come in. Ryan Schleif as well has made it into the pit stop. So I think we are seeing that pit stop window open for some of these drivers there, Jack.
Yep, we're into lap 18.
So we'll have to keep an eye on... Oh, as Paul Hall has a quick off. I believe that is coming through the turn 3. And really a very tough braking zone. One of those where you're kind of turning and braking at the same time, trying to lose that momentum, but still carry good speed. So the tough corner, Paul Hall did not get it right that time. But
no, and he lost a spot to Matt Taylor.
So it looks like Mike Trussler has parked it here tonight. Looks like Mike Trussler is going to be out of this event here tonight. So it is 21 continuing to circulate here on track as we have completed our first, well, as we begin to complete our first set of pit stops. So let's get now...
Yeah, and Mike Trussler is out due to an accident, but I think it might have been self-induced. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, but I don't see anybody else involved with him.
Yeah, thanks for that update, Jack. So, you know, last time we cut to the leaders, I was actually a little surprised to see Eiran Parsons still so close to John Luden. And let me tell you something right now, Jack. Should this gap remain the same, then nobody's going to beat Eiran Parsons tonight. That car gets way too good fuel economy. And I have to say, I don't know. I think John Luden had speed, but I suspect maybe once Eiran was able to get into the draft and hang on to it down the straights, he is now able to match that lap-to-lap pace of John Luden. And if John can't get away, then that's it. John cannot beat Eiran Parsons here tonight. I'll just say it right now.
Well, you've nailed it right on, Brad. I'm looking at the lap times here, and they are in lockstep. And boy, you know what? I think if I remember right, last year John had some trouble in the pits. You know, I had some poor pit stops. I hope he's done his homework on this, and I'm pretty sure he has. But I don't think anybody's going to beat Eiran Parsons or Chris Moses on the pit stops. They're two of the best in the league at doing it. They get in, they get out. They're very tidy at doing it, and I don't know anybody who's better. So I got to agree with you. John's in a tough spot here, but boy, he's in a great spot right now. He's run P1 for a number of laps, so good on you, John.
Oh,
whoa!
John.
And we had a lag.
I think John Luden now has lagged out. Oh, what? Uh-oh. So John Luden looks like
Are we starting to drop some guys?
Well, I think we just had John Luden as well, there's a couple guys.
We are losing a few drivers here.
Well,
not looking good.
In any event, it looks like John Luden has locked up as drivers continue to go on. But you know what? We'll just continue on and see how things shake out for the moment, Jack. So we actually saw a momentary lag by Eiran Parsons early in this event. John Luden got caught up in that. And so, unfortunately, it looks like it's turn and turn alike. However, in this case, it might be terminal for John Luden. And I tell you this, Jack, as we have lost a few drivers here, you know, there's a possibility that GTR2 does not necessarily handle the client-to-client files and online connectivity in the best of fashions. So John Luden locking up, I think, might have caused some problems here on the server. I think it was definitely John Luden that locked up first, and we've kind of had a rash of disconnects here. So I'm wondering if John Luden's files are all clean and good to go. They may be perfect. Don't necessarily listen to me on that, as drivers continue to disconnect, and I'm a little worried about how we are going to be able to continue this race. There is a pretty firm cutoff on amount of drivers disconnecting from event until we have to call it off, Jack.
Yeah, we're at lap 21 of 90. You know, we're still pretty early in this race, and we're down to 15 active drivers now. So we've lost a handful of drivers in the last couple of minutes there, Brad.
Well, I tell you, we're going to go ahead and continue on as best we can for the moment until we get any type of official word from the race stewards. You know, one guy I did want to get to, as we do our best to continue that coverage. One guy we didn't have the opportunity to talk a lot about because he was running so much on his own was Chris Moses. Now, Chris Moses unfortunately has taken a disconnect.
Chris has dropped.
Yeah, Chris Moses has unfortunately taken a disconnect, but prior to that, it actually showed very good speed in that Panos, and I just, at the very least, wanted to give some name recognition out there, because Chris Moses and Al Marimond really were struggling in that PMR Panos, but Chris putting it really to very good use in this event, and I wonder if he had some strategy kind of up his sleeve, really.
Parsons and Poole in the pits.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. So we'll keep an eye on that. It looked like that gap was about 7 seconds or so from Eiran Parsons to David Poole. Yeah. And I have to say, really on balance, not such a bad amount of time to be losing to those two guys who had such great pace toward the front. Of course, John Luden no longer with us.
Yeah, that's got to be a heartbreaker there. Boy, he was running a very, very good race. Probably pounding his wheel at this point.
Yeah, no doubt, as are a few other drivers, I'm sure. It's a pretty tough spot that we suddenly find ourselves in that, you know, we have had to reschedule the race. It being such a terribly long event, it has to be said, very difficult for these guys to prepare and show up for a 3-hour event, start the event, and then have to kind of prepare for that 3-hour event all over again next week. So it's a tough spot to have to try to rerun this event yet again. And, you know, we actually haven't gotten to that cutoff point of amount of drivers kind of lost through to technical difficulties. So I suspect they are going to try to go ahead and get this event in the books here tonight, Jack.
Yeah, I was just looking at the chat channel, and I'm looking on the Ventrilo, and some of the drivers that dropped are actually gone off event.
I see. Well, that's interesting. I don't know if that voiceover...
Yeah, I was sort of hoping to grab Chris Moses and get his comment on what was going on. He's pretty knowledgeable on how these things are going to play out.
Well, I think we'll have the opportunity and a little bit of time to grab some driver interviews, as unfortunately the action probably will slow down just a little bit for us with those driver disconnects. But we want to make sure that if they do get the race in, we get everybody highlighted as much as we can to make sure that they get their name in lights, so to speak. Particularly for the guys that...
Well...
Go ahead.
Well, you know, some of these guys have moved up into the limelight now, Brad. You know, we've got Thomas Schubeck running in 5th right now, so Thomas in a great spot. Andre Prado, all the way from his troubles at the, you know, from flipping on the lid at the start there, he's up into 4th. So a lot of the drivers are moving up in just a disconnect fashion.
Sure, and we will get to that as soon as these pit stops completely cycle through, and I think we're almost done here. Just a couple guys to come in. John Houston, you would think, would be one of the last to come in, perhaps with the exception of Sergio Calderon has come in. As soon as those pit stops cycle through, we'll make sure we get through the order and bring you up to date on just who is running where. Let's see, so it is Al Merriman now, has yet to make his stop in the Pano, so Al electing to run it very deep. Andres Prieto as well. Taking it pretty deep in this event, and it kind of begs the question now. We know Aaron Parsons could have run much, much longer in that Lister storm. He has elected to come into the pit, so I don't think Aaron Parsons is going to be able to completely reduce a pit stop, and I don't know exactly what his strategy is here, but well, you know, let me look quickly. Let's see. Well, the track temperature is 111 degrees. I was thinking maybe Aaron might have been thinking something like double standing tires, but we see Al Merriman coming in now from the 3rd position, and talk about moving up the order. Well, Al Merriman has certainly benefited from that, running 11th before those problems started happening. One other thing quickly, Jack, is that I wanted to mention,
You know,
real quickly, is that pit stop time in and out of the pit, so it was about 7 seconds from Aaron Parsons to David Poole. That gap has now gone up to 10.
yeah, so, you know, might be a smart move there on, well, you know what, a great statistician is Aaron Parsons as well as a driver, so I'm pretty sure he knows what he's doing. But one of the guys who we've given a lot of airtime to tonight is John Houston. He's currently running back in P1 with John Sportelli all over his tailpipe.
Yeah, and what a great position that is, at least for the moment. Now, when John does finally come in for that pit stop, of course, he will be shuffled back a little bit. Whoa, as Rich Roman gets very loose coming off the final exit curbing. Teammate Thomas Schubeck is into the pits as we speak. Sergio Calderon has completed his stop, and that Lister Storm is looking much better in terms of the sheet metal. Mike Greetrex has now jumped into the points due to those disconnects there, running around in the 14th position. Jonathan Cuppett in 15th, and of course those are your runners, unfortunately, at the moment. So you mentioned, Jack, that battle between John Houston and John Sportelli. So we saw all those cars coming through when we had such a great battle there in the middle of that first stint, and John Sportelli was actually toward the back of all those cars trying to get through John Houston. Well, now he finds himself on the bumper, but still trying to get by, Jack.
Yeah, yeah, but you know, John has shown a lot of patience tonight, and I got to hand it to him because, as you mentioned earlier, you know, patience might not be John's forte, but it may be paying off for him tonight.
You know, I don't know that if I had done 100 broadcasts and mentioned John Sportelli, conservative would be two things that would have gone together. So, but I got to be honest, I do like to see it now. I think John, unfortunately, is one of the drivers that do not have a lot of opportunity to get a lot of practice in. John Sportelli, one of those guys that typically does, but I think work for John Sportelli has been a little difficult of late in terms of having a lot of time. As John Sportelli now looking to make a move in the second to last corner, but thought better of it. I tell you what John's problem is right now is it's a very difficult track to pass on in the twisties, and that Lamborghini just has no speed down the straight. So can certainly make up a lot of ground through the corners, but very difficult to make the pass, and just has no legs down the straight. He just cannot make the pass, so has been stuck for a long time. And this Lamborghini is a car where your pit window is very limited, so uses a lot of fuel, the Lamborghini, and you just have to stay out a certain amount of laps if you want to make a particular amount of pit stops.
Well, you know, you mentioned that you know, it's not an easy track to pass on these twisty bits, but that hasn't stopped these guys from trying tonight. You know, we've seen some great side-by-side action through those corners.
Yeah, we have, and of course the action into that right-hand sweeper past the long straight. Yeah, you'll excuse me if I don't try the pronunciation, but we've certainly seen some hectic action there.
Now, I'm just looking at the lap times for John Houston. He's not made a pit stop yet, so he's taking full advantage of that fuel economy in that car.
Yeah, indeed he has. And if we look quickly to those times, a 44.3 here early on. Actually not such a bad lap time, it has to be said. Actually quite good. And now running toward the 46, though a couple 45s sprinkled in there. Quite a few laps run here, it has to be said. So working lap, what is it, 27 or 25, whichever. I know it says 26 laps, but we're working lap 27, right? Well, anyway. In any event...
Absolutely.
Yeah, in any event, should John Houston be running 45s? Not such bad lap times, really, it has to be said, this deep into the race. And I tell you something else. It's usually after that first pit stop when you've really had a look at the track. You know how the car is going to handle and react once the tires get worn. And with the track conditions, it is very warm out there, so no doubt causing the drivers a little consternation with heat in the tires, a little loss of grip. John Houston will be a little bit more settled in that second stint and will have the opportunity to figure out how best to conserve that car over the course of the whole stint, Jack.
Yeah, talking about a warm track, and we didn't catch it, but David Poole is out with engine trouble.
Oh! So that's interesting. Now, if that didn't come from an incident out on track connected with a barrier, that could very well be related to the heat. Now, that Ford GT really does not much care for the heat, as John Sportelli might be close enough now to make a pass. Looking for it on the outside, he gets out into that clean air, and that Lamborghini just kind of comes to a stop. And he's going to go for the up and under now, and I think finally is going to make that pass stick. Now,
I'm just going to drop down and have a quick chat with David Pohl and see what happened down there, Brad.
Well, hold on a second, Jack, and we will bring him up. How's that sound?
I can drag him up.
Oh, please do.
Hey, Brad, we got David Pohl here.
Yeah, Brad Mears, Jack Ivey, NAGPTV. David, are you around? Do you copy?
Yep, not too pleased, but I'm here.
Yeah, very tough break, David. Unfortunately tonight a rash of disconnects, and it looks like you have gone out as well. Now, it did show up officially as an engine DNF. Was that due to contact or just the darn lump blowing up on you?
No, I going into the right-hander at the end of the long straight, I just accidentally went down one gear too many, went to second gear, and I realized it instantly. It couldn't have been more than a second and a half, 2 seconds. I flipped back up to third, and too late. Engine was completely zero, just dead. It's hard to believe it's quite that fragile, but it's pretty frustrating to say the least.
Were you experiencing extreme engine wear, David, with the heat out there?
Nope, everything was normal, and I had the radiator full open, and everything was fine. Engine temps were all normal, so I hadn't looked at it at the engine wear right before, but I mean, typically I'm not using that much, maybe 10% per stent or so. So yeah, don't know. Very frustrating though.
Bad break, David.
Yeah.
Yep, and yeah, it's too bad with the disconnects too. Andrew got caught up in that, and John obviously, so that's unfortunate as well. But nothing you can do, I guess.
Yes, and as mentioned, it is a pretty difficult situation for not only the drivers, of course, but for the race stewards, as it were, the admins around here, having the race already rescheduled. As John Houston now does dive in finally in that Viper. I have to say that I'm shocked, really. John Sportelli has been able to make this distance now. John, very good on fuel, but still in all, that Lamborghini to make it this many laps is pretty shocking. But yeah, so back to it being very difficult for these admins to reschedule this race, particularly, David, trying to prepare for one of these long 3-hour endurance events. It must be difficult for you having to prepare and know that you're going to be racing for 3 hours, and to have to do that a couple weeks in a row is bad enough, let alone 3.
Yep. So, and then of course, to have this happen, big letdown. So, kind of the gamut of emotions there, but nothing I can do. So, yeah. And you mentioned Sportelli there. I'm surprised. I know that Lamborghini got a little increase or improvement in its fuel economy, but I didn't see exactly how much. Boy, and that thing really, the tires last a long time though. So if he may be thinking about doing the last one, not changing his tires on his last stop. That's interesting.
Yeah, I have to say I'm actually
real good point.
I'm sorry, Jack. Real quickly, I have to say I'm more or less shocked now. I didn't do any running in the Lamborghini after it got those tweaks, so never did have the opportunity to really check it out on track myself. But in any event, very surprising. I suspect John ends soon. Sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
No, good point you made there, David. And geez, it's a heartbreaker to see you out. I was pulling for you there, brother.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Those guys kind of got a gap on me, and then it stabilized for a while, and then they started pulling away again. So I thought I was going to have a good second half of the stint car, but boy, those guys were moving out. I mean, they were still doing 44.1, 44.2 at the end of the stint, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Well, your early practice times were pretty impressive too, David. So nothing to sneeze at, and I had picked you to take this thing.
Well, I tried, but I don't know. Would have taken something to overcome, as I'm sure, even with John disconnecting. So.
Well, I see you still in the server, David. You're welcome to hang out, actually, as long as you like. Frankly, we could use the extra voices in here, as we do have quite a ways to run yet, and fill-in time can always be problematic. But in any event, I'd like to go ahead and add to the chorus too. It was such a fine race that you were having. tonight, and so sorry to see it come undone. I'll tell you one thing that I was interested in, and maybe interested to hear your reaction in, was once John Luden was able to make the pass on Eiran Parsons. I don't know about you, but I was very surprised Eiran able to maintain basically a no gap at all to John Luden, hanging right on his bumper.
Yeah, you know, all of a sudden near the end of the straight, it was like all of a sudden he had DRS or something, and of course I was using some downforce, but you know, I think Eiran certainly benefited from drafting him, but boy, it was like he just had another gear at the end of that straight. He would just take it. I mean, it was a market almost looking like an acceleration beyond normal. That was impressive. He must have really low downforce on that car. I think the McLaren's pretty low drag anyway.
Well, it certainly is. I think that for both those guys, Eiran Parsons, I know in that Lister Storm can take off pretty much all of the rear spoiler if he wishes to. Will still maintain very good grip and does get quite a drag reduction boost from that. So certainly could probably run as little as a 2 or 3 wing if he so chose. So we did see Rich Roman make a pass on Marty Eiran. I don't think Marty Eiran actually has been in the pits either. I can't imagine he would be, but you know what? I see Al Merriman.
Not yet.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, Marty hasn't pitted yet.
Okay, so I suspect...
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did. He did early. He pitted early. Very early.
Ah, okay, right. Which is why we saw him back in the 23rd position. So now these battles perhaps coming back together, Jack, and we are seeing now Marty Eiran having some problems and drifting through the field a little bit due to tire wear. Perhaps that is some of what's going on now. Marty, with that early stop, of course, he is in danger of not being able to make the distance. Now, if I'm not mistaken, David Poole, it was 3 stops for the majority of the field, is that right?
Yeah, 222 and 223 lap stints if you were just going to break them down evenly.
Okay, I see. So, as some
well, then Marty has
so that would be 3
got
stops,
himself.
correct.
Marty's definitely got himself out of sync there because he's coming to the end. If I counted correctly, he's got 20 laps on since his last stop.
Okay, well now we've got it sorted. So these guys all have made their pit stops, and Marty Eiran has reached the end of that tire life apparently. And we'll see how that comes back together for Marty Eiran toward the end of this event, because he will be making an earlier stop than all the rest of these guys for his final pit stop, it would be assumed. So we'll see how that
yeah,
all
and
comes
I could
back together.
I think I'm sorry, Brad. I think the Celine still gets a little better mileage than I was getting, and I could do 26 laps on 1 tank of fuel. So if somebody wants to do the math, there would be 73. So you'd have to make the first 17 for me, and he may be able to get an extra lap or 2 out of that Celine without having to make an extra stop.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, one thing we do know is that Marty Eiran does run 7th. John Houston is in 8th. So John Houston definitely looking to take advantage here and slip past Marty Eiran. Now, we know he should have advantage on those fresh tires, and I tell you, I'm interested in checking in on John Houston's lap-to-lap times after he gets a couple in, and to see if he does improve on those 45s that he was running. After all, he did put in that 44.5 early in that first stint, so we know that he can manage the on-track pace.
He's running 145.4 right now.
Yes, but however, that is behind Marty Eiran, so I'm wondering if he is being affected a little bit. I suspect that he does have some pace on Marty Eiran. Now, it may come down to having to take a little bit of a chance. That Saline does get down the straights very nicely, so that Viper power perhaps not as advantageous on the Saline as it would be, say, on the Lamborghini behind him. John Sportelli now, it looks like, has been beaten out of the pits by John Houston, so that battle is quickly going to come back together as well. This time it will be over the 7th position, however, as it looks like Marty Eiran has made a mistake, and John Houston has gone by.
And I'll tell you, Rich Roman is up. And now he's made an inside move into the end of the long straight there. He couldn't quite get a run on him, but he did get the inside position there and take that 4th place away.
Now, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to assume Matt Taylor has made a stop as well, though he's looking pretty shaky, so he made a very early stop.
He did indeed. He made a stop in around 11.
Boy,
lap 11 there, and he's got 2 cut laps.
Oh boy, that's a long time to run with 2 cut laps, but we do see that Saleen very tail happy, so we know that those tires are certainly toward the end of their life as he has given up just tons of ground. Al Merriman here will certainly look to get Matt Taylor as well. He is falling into the clutches of the boss shortly, as John Houston now is also picking up some ground on that battle, and despite running out of drivers, they certainly are running close at the moment, Jack.
They sure are. You know, we've got, P4, 5, and 6. They're all within a few seconds of each other, so there's a good race going on there. And Houston's not that far behind with Marty and Sportelli behind him, so, top 10 spots are still hotly contested here.
Yeah, Sportelli is all over the back of Marty now. So he's joined this battle. This looks like they're going to come together here for quite a fight.
Yeah, and of course, Marty Eiran is on the Pirelli shod Saleen. Tires usually do hold up pretty well in heat like this, but not necessarily at the rears down long straights. Those tires do tend to heat up and can cause some loss of adhesion. John Sportelli is going to try to slip into that draft now and look to make the move into the sweeper, but it will be on the outside.
I don't know, he just runs. Yeah, it just runs out of momentum, too. That Saleen's got so much straight line speed.
Yeah, certainly tucks, that Lamborghini does well, tucked up under the rear end of the Saleen, but pulling out into that fresh air and that air hitting the nose. As John
look at this,
Sportelli
careful,
now
guys.
on the inside.
Side by side.
Yeah, certainly, and
Yep,
of course,
just more grip there.
as cataloged, that outside lane, very little grip. So Marty Eiran, but that's not going to hurt Marty Eiran too much, as he no doubt is going to be due for a pit stop pretty soon. So now that pit stops have cycled through, we'll quickly try to get through the order here as they do run with the drivers that we have left. So Aaron Parsons continues to hold the lead out front, some 23 seconds up over Alex White now, and I suspect Alex White really is going to have his work cut out for him, though such great speed and of course moving up through attrition. However, he is trying to hound down a very speedy Aaron Parsons as well, who will have a big fuel advantage as this race wears on. So Ryan Schleif takes the 3rd position now, 3rd on track, and Rich Roman now running a little bit alone in 4th after making that pass on Marty Eiran. Al Merriman has gotten by, of course, for that 5th position, so Al Merriman now, it has to be said, moved up again through some of that attrition, as many drivers have, but also was putting in a very fine race before that happened. And so the Panos showing very nicely in 5th place, and you have to assume Chris Moses would find himself well and truly up there, possibly on the podium, or certainly right off of it without those disconnects. Matt Taylor now falling into the clutches of John Houston, as we expected with that tire wear. And that nearly cycles through our order. We'll go back quickly here and try to get back to that battle. John Houston is on 7th. And on the inside, I think that Matt Taylor is going to fall prey to teammate Marty Eiran getting hung out without any grip out there on the marbles. But he will fight back nicely on the inside. And the shoe is on the other foot, as they say, but it looks like John Houston will be through clean. So John Sportelli now 8th. Marty Eiran falls back to 9th. Yet to pit, Andres Prieto in 10th, and this is another driver we're going to have to keep an eye on as this race plays out. Lots of speed there. Sergio Calderon just out of the top 10. Thomas Schubeck, haven't mentioned Thomas Schubeck in a while. We've been cataloging some of these other things going on. He runs in 12th. Jonathan Cuppett takes over the 13th position. Mike Retrex finds himself 14th, and that is going to do it for your runners, unfortunately. So I'm out of breath now, guys. Jack Ivy?
Yeah, I'll tell you while you were saying that.
Yeah,
did you see that?
Pits. Yes, and poor old Matt Taylor spun it going into the pits there, so he can't be too happy with that entrance.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say he looks like he's really got his hands full. You know, Saleen is so heavy, it puts a lot of wear on those rear tires. And then he has that first pit stall, which is very difficult to get into. So he's backed the car into that pit entry, just trying to keep his momentum up and then still get stopped in time. So Yeah, that cost him for sure.
Certainly.
Yeah, I'm just hoping he didn't get a black flag going in there, or get a stop and go going in there, because it looked like he came in pretty hot.
And that was a pit entrance that we cataloged and talked about a little bit as being very dangerous. Now, I am checking over a little bit on the Twitch chat. Thank you again.
Oops.
Thank you
There goes
again,
somebody.
Thank you again,
Yep.
everybody, for tuning in here to NAGP TV's live coverage of this opening round GT1 Season 23 action. I'll do my best to try to keep apprised of the comments rolling in on Twitch. It is difficult with all the action going on. I'll try quickly to kind of minimize that window. It is very difficult here, however, as we certainly don't want to lose pictures on my end. But Jack, go ahead.
We lost John Houston.
Oh, no. Well, let me ask you guys a very self-serving technical question here. If we are yet to get to the halfway point and we lose more than half the drivers, is there an official rule on that?
We are not at the halfway point, and we have lost half the drivers.
I like the sound of that, but I understand logistically how difficult that would be.
Well, it's again, it puts everybody in a very difficult spot. Again, we'll have to wait for official word, and perhaps as this race goes on, we could get one of the admins in here to give us some direction on that. But it is generally half the field, yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you guys, it's a shame to lose John Houston. He was doing real well. Viper is obviously good on that long straight, but it must be a real handful down through these twisty sections. That's not the pointiest nose of cars. And I'll tell you who else is really impressing me is Ryan Schleif. Maybe you guys know how he says it, but he has got that Corvette move on him, and he is in mid 44s a lot of the laps. You know, anywhere from down to a 44 flat up to high 44s. But he's been real consistent, and he's driving that car very well.
Well, it was cataloged, Ryan Schleif, and we talked a little bit about how it is. You can tend to pick up speed a little bit after those pit stops and get settled down and figure out how that car is going to react over the course of a whole stint. It can kind of help refocus after the opening fray and kind of the nerves of getting settled down and working into an event.
Yeah, he's run pretty consistently, David, as you mentioned. I mean, he's run 44, 45s. He's just running a good, consistent race. He's done a great job out there tonight.
Yeah, Corvette very good on rough on the front tires, but looks like he's managing it pretty well. So I'm impressed with the way he's been driving. He's really, he's not losing a lot of time to Alex White, who's almost the same split to Eiran that he's been for the last 5 or 6 laps. So he's not like he's fallen out of this. He's driving very well.
Yeah, having a great race. Schleif is. Rich is running a good race too. But as we mentioned earlier, my heart goes out there, to the guys that have dropped. I mean, that's a lot of prep time you guys have put in here. You're all set. You're all geared up for 3 hours, and to get out on a technicality is just absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, especially 2 weeks of preparation time. Yeah, so my teammate Andrew was one of the ones who lost out on that, so he was very much heartbroken. He's glad to be back racing.
Well, the further this race does go along, there are some possible options. Maybe awarding points up to a certain distance, perhaps awarding half points, doing some different things, perhaps even rescheduling a different track or doing some types of different things. But it does pose a lot of problems. I don't know exactly how the admins are going to handle this one, but it's going to be very interesting to see how it shakes out and how this season 23 is going to be affected by this season opener.
Yeah, we still got 7 laps to go to meet halfway, and we've only got 11 drivers left in the field, and it's a shame. It really is a shame to have our season opener be glitched 2 weeks in a row. I thought we got the jinx all out last week, but obviously not.
Yeah, I'm just Monday I'll put some work in and make upgrades to the server, so it's disappointing to see this still plagued by some issues here. I'll tell you, I said Alex White, or he wasn't losing Alex, but Alex is flying. I mean, he's had some mid 43s here at his best lap times, and he is. I mean, it's only been a couple more seconds, but he is slowly closing. The problem is Eiran's going to gain another 4 or 5 seconds every pit stop, I think.
Yeah, Eiran's just so good at the pit stops. You know, seems to get in and out in this such a timely fashion. It just amazes me constantly how all you top shoes around here pull off these magical pit times. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, that lists are also very miserly with fuel.
Well, I tell you something else Eiran has working in his advantage, and that is really a tremendous amount of racecraft. Now, you aren't going to take anything away from Alex White on that front. However, Eiran Parsons been in, it has to be said, even many more situations than Alex White has, particularly in this GT1 class, and he will tend to, I think he's going to know exactly what kind of times that he needs to maintain to make his strategy work. And Eiran Parsons very good at driving to those times. We see Marty Eiran getting very loose now, coming up on, I don't believe that is Ryan Schleif, actually, who I think Marty Eiran has gone a lap down in order as they run on track. What's going on here?
Yeah, we've got Schubeck, Cuppet, Marty, and Taylor down a lap.
Yeah, now of course those guys are off sequence, but I suspect Marty Eiran actually has given up quite a bit of time, of course, to those front runners, and coming in for that early stop and getting caught behind some traffic. I think, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to reclaim those positions by the end of this event or not, so Marty Eiran is going to have to be showing a little bit better lap times than he is now, I think, to be able to get back on that lead lap by the end.
Yeah, he's back in the very low 45s. In fact, the last 2 laps for Marty are very consistent, 144 or 145.2s. So he's been very consistent in the last 2 laps. He's just going to have to keep it up.
Well, you mentioned, David, a little bit about holding pace throughout the stints and some of the tire wear issues we talked about. How about for yourself? How was your tire wear toward the end of the stints, and were you able to hold pretty good pace? I know you typically do. So David perhaps muted or having some little bit of audio issues in any event out there. Actually,
he's still in our chat channel, but might not be hearing us right now.
Okay. Well,
so still 5 laps short of halfway, and 11 guys out on track. Bit of a lonely race for these guys tonight.
Well, it is, and of course we did expect to see some gaps open up. Certainly not these types of gaps, of course, and particularly not as early into this event. So I think, you know, most of the guys kind of expected this to happen in some way, but, you know, typically you'll have the opportunity at least to run up on some traffic. Occasionally have guys off sequence and pit stops. There's just more drivers out there, of course, to keep things a little interested, and but at the same time, it is something we also talked about at the top, about this being kind of a different event in terms of the race length. So yeah, you do need to turn type of times Alex White is turning, but you also do need to manage an entire race length for so long, and to keep that concentration and that focus up, and honestly find times where you can relax that focus a little bit. Perhaps going down the straights, you can kind of flex the hands a little bit, maybe look off to the sides of the track or something like that, just so long as you don't do it entering that very dangerous right-hand sweeper at the end of the straight.
Yeah, that we've seen quite a number of drivers take that and slide wide on there. Just wanted to give you a little update. Eiran Parsons has just passed his teammate Sergio Calderon to put Sergio down the lap.
So honestly, not completely surprising given Eiran Parsons' pace. I think that a lot of these drivers have yet actually to be lapped. The ones that we have remaining by Eiran Parsons, because his pace simply has not dropped off too much. Alex White, I believe, does continue to make a bit of a dent to the tune of a couple seconds here over the last 15 minutes or so. So continuing to take out a little bit of time on Eiran Parsons.
Yeah, you know, Alex is, you know, nipping about 0.3 of a second off per lap. So Alex has got the hammer down there, you know, and he's got 45, you know, laps left to do it in.
So we'll definitely keep apprised of that situation. In the meantime, we do have a battle brewing quickly, excuse me, here between Jonathan Cuppett and Thomas Schubeck, who finds himself running in the 8th position. Was running very well. Did start having those disconnects, so has not moved up a lot through attrition, but rather through speed. But Jonathan Cuppett is looking for that position now.
And Jonathan's had some good runs, you know, in the last past season, so doing real well, and obviously keeping it clean, keeping it between the lines, and giving Thomas a run for his money midway through this race.
So picking up a very nice draft. They are running a lot of wing on that Nissan GTR. It should be much faster down the straight than it is, but apparently they have the setup worked out, which allows them to get through some of the corners nicely. And we see actually Jonathan go through for that 8th position. I suspected Thomas Schubeck, had he had the opportunity, would have been willing to fight a little harder than he might have earlier, now that these gaps have opened up a little bit. But in any event, he's not going to get the opportunity, I don't think, as Jonathan Cuppett just showed the speed there, and actually it's quickly to be pulling away as well.
Yeah, you know, once he got by, he is definitely leaving Thomas behind, but, you know, not a bad run. You know, Thomas is having a good run out there tonight, so not going to take anything away from Thomas tonight.
So it is Ryan Schleif now completing his pit stop. His lap times, as you can see, have dropped off a little bit there, now running more toward the high 45s, low 46s, so got a few of those sprinkled in anyway. So Ryan Schleif coming in for his stop, and it looked like it might have been pretty sorely needed. Now I just did look on timing and scoring as well, and see Alex White a couple more seconds off than he was, as the gap does come down now. So a little timing and scoring issue there, and that gap continues now to run under 20
yeah,
seconds.
Alex is just nipping away. Again, as you said, you know, Parsons in the driver's seat, so to speak, Brad. I mean, he knows exactly what he's got to run to take it through to the end.
So I'm going to try to quickly get Al Merriman as he approaches the long straight here. And he's not there yet. We'll give it a couple corners and see if we can't get some type of update from him, but we certainly don't want to put him in a position where we're talking in his ear going around.
No, Brad. Yeah, Brad, you know what? We might leave him. I'm looking at his lap count. He's coming real close to a pit stop. We may be able to grab him at the pit stop, you know, without interfering with him, because I hate to put the broadcaster's curse on Al, because he is running a good solid race in 4th, and he's only a few seconds out of a podium finish tonight.
Well, keep us apprised on when he may pull into those pits, and we'll try to grab him quickly.
Absolutely. As soon as he dives into the pits and gets settled in the pits, I will drag him up to the booth. As I say, you know, I just hate to break his concentration. He's doing so well tonight.
It'd probably be okay going down the straight. We can alert him that we'll be chatting with him on the next straight, what have you. So Eiran Parsons now has come into the pits, and Eiran Parsons in from the lead, about 20 seconds clear of Alex White. So we'll have to see where those time gaps go to once Alex White looks to make his pit stop.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that this next rotation is going to tell the whole story here. And boy, that was quick.
Yeah, he'll be gaining a ton of time on the stops. Now, looking through timing and scoring, I see actually Al Merriman is beginning to pick up a little bit of time on Rich Roman now. So that gap definitely coming down. Now only a couple seconds out is Al Merriman, and provisionally on the podium there in third place. Of course, he has a pit stop yet to make relative to Eiran Parsons.
Yeah, but you're right. His times are solid. He is running solid 45s for this whole last stint. He is only in the 146s for this whole last stint. He has had a super stint.
Yeah, another one of those guys I think benefiting after settling down a little bit, working into the race, and being able to kind of engage full focus there after those pit stops.
Okay, guys, I'm back. I'm sorry. Was actually talking to my teammate Andrew on the phone.
Hey, that's okay.
Yeah, it's no problem at all, dude.
So what happened now is, I guess, Eiran has made his second stop here, I take it. And Alex has not.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a lot of time lost. Well, not so bad, I guess. My pit stop, my first stop was 50 seconds, and that was to go from... probably had 16 liters of fuel in the car and went up to 88, which is what I needed for 23 laps. So I would think as I need a little less than that. Now, you know, I never checked the delta of just doing a drive-through for the pit stop, so I don't know. I guess it's not that much time lost. You'd think you'd be gaining on him here with fresh tires.
If you're taking 88, it could be as little as 70 liters in that lister, so big, huge fuel savings for sure.
It better not be that low.
It could very well be, actually.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Alex before the race, and he was using about 0.25 liters fewer per lap, which would mean about 20 liters over the course of the race. And I'm sure Ez is using less than that.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Eiran Parsons not really known for his big fuel-saving economy, a la John Sportelli, very good with fuel. Gup Douglas, my teammate...
Alex White in the pit.
Al's into the pits? Oh,
Alex
no,
White.
Alex.
Okay, good. Well, we'll have the opportunity
Yeah,
to check
so at
those
58
gaps here directly.
Eiran was 58 seconds when he went in, so it'll be interesting. Maybe we can get at least a ballpark idea of the difference there.
Yeah, it was a 20-second differential between Eiran Parsons when he made that stop to Alex White.
Okay, yeah, but I had seen that he closed it down to just inside of 20. So I don't know if he's going to have enough time. I'm sure, like you said, Brad, that Eiran will just be kind of watching that gap and doing what he needs to do, probably saving some tires. And
go ahead and drag him up there,
so
Jack.
we'll see what happens.
Al Merriman in the pits.
Yeah, would you drag him up, please?
Sportelli takes over the lead here. So Alex is just now down and away as Parsons is approaching or into turn 3.
Al Merriman here on the broadcast real quickly. So we've had quite a few drivers disconnect. It looks like we're going to go ahead and try to get the completion of this event in on its full laps.
Yep.
Okay, well, thanks, Al. Best of luck tonight. Your position certainly looks good. The Panos looks great. And best of luck to you the rest of the way, buddy.
Thank you, Brad. Take it easy.
And I got to tell you guys, Alex White made up time on that, staying out, and maybe who knows what Eiran has done with fuel. Maybe he's topping off each time so that he'll have shorter stops later, or maybe Alex is taking short fills. But he's made up another few seconds there. That is surprising for sure.
Well, if it were Monday night and I was kind of co-hosting, I certainly would try to work out those pit lane times to see how much fuel, but you're absolutely right. Alex White did pick up a lot of time, and I have to tell you, this should be a little concerning to Eiran Parsons at this point of the race. If Alex White can keep knocking off those tenths of a second per lap, then this could be a challenge toward Eiran Parsons. I would have figured he would have gained much more time in the pits than he has been.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, inside of 15 seconds. He's almost just about to get inside of 15 seconds. That is considerably closer than 23, which is what we were talking about when I first came in here. So that's, you know, what are we, just a little over halfway, so that's significant for sure.
The pit lap time difference is almost 5 seconds advantage for Alex White over that pit lane time.
Yeah, so I got to think either Eiran had some sort of problem, or he's just topping that car off, and he'll have very short stops later. I mean, because, you know, by the numbers, he should be using a lot less fuel than the Aston Martin.
Yeah, unless he runs this stint very long, then he won't be taking a short fill, actually. And Eiran Parsons does not typically take short fills. He will run equal distance stints if he can, knowing Eiran the way that I do. In fact, I have to say, though, I was a little surprised that he did come in as early as he did on that first stop. I figured that he would be trying to take it as late as possible. I'm wondering, David, if maybe the heat didn't play a little bit of a role, and some of the tire degradation on that Lister Storm, being able to hold the type of lap times he needed to really save maximum fuel.
Yeah, that's possible. You know, he could have maybe started on medium rear tires, and they weren't working as well as he had hoped. He's trying to work his way past Sportelli. Oh, a little bit of contact. He gets unseats Sportelli back of his car. He's trying to get by here. He's losing time for sure because John's on worn tires.
Lost 3 seconds to Alex White, just being hung up behind Sportelli.
Yeah, that's no fun. John should let him go. Now, of course, John's on an alternate strategy, so he's got to figure he's got to, you know, hold as much position as he can. But you know, he still only made one stop, so that's another good 45, 50 seconds he's going to lose.
Letting somebody go and John Sportelli are two things that do not belong in the same sentence.
What was I thinking?
You know, Parsons does have a 1 second per lap pace advantage over Sportelli, so this is not playing out well right now. Well, we're down to almost 13-second gap to Alex White.
I suspect Eiran Parsons will be able to get him down the straight here. He should have decently better top speed than the Lamborghini, and even if he pulls out, he should have the opportunity to find a little room to make that pass, I think.
Well, he was right behind him on the last lap, and it looked like the Lamborghini's a pretty slippery car, so now Eiran's got the inside position. Boy, he just cannot quite get there, can he?
Can't pull it.
No.
Well, I agree, David. I think because of that alternate strategy, Sportelli really should let him be involved in his own race, which is really with Alex White, and Eiran Parsons will very quickly become frustrated. Eiran Parsons about as cool a customer as they come. However, at some point, even Eiran Parsons is going to say, well, okay, I will have to be coming through now, and here I come.
Yeah,
you know,
and he's seeing that gap behind. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You know, just a little tap, and the big loser here is going to be Sportelli. He's going to get spun.
Yeah, you got to think about that a little bit, and you know, he's watching. I'm sure Aaron's watching that gap behind. Just gets shrinking. Here he goes, the headlights. That cut me some slack here, but yeah, and you know, I think Sportelli may be actually losing some time himself. You know, he's being defensive. He's certainly going to be giving up a little bit of time as well. So. There we go. Aaron's had enough. Oh,
well, he's had enough. He overcooked it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm.
Yep. Very frustrating for sure.
I'm not
we go.
A huge fan of that myself. I think you and I are pretty close in terms of stuff like that, David, and knowing that really trying to contest those positions end up costing us a lot of time in the end. So I think we're both on the same page with that.
Yep. Yeah, that's 5 seconds lost. 5 seconds closer Alex White is now. That's just over the course of a couple laps. That's too bad.
Yeah, from pit stop to now, we're talking almost 9 seconds advantage to Alex White.
So it is now battle rejoined. We looked at this a little bit here prior to that pit stop cycle. Now Al Merriman was closing in, or rather, yes, Al was closing in on Rich Roman. So that gap actually has continued to come down. And after pit stops, it looks like Al Merriman could have an opportunity here to reel in Rich Roman. That's going to be a battle for the 5th position, though. I'm not 100% sure Rich has come in for that second pit stop yet. He has indeed. So.
Yes, he
Yeah,
did.
that's where they should be running on the road. So now Al close enough to get a good tow. The Nissan's got a lot of legs down the straight, and not sure the Panos has the best top speed. But if you're inside a second, you're certainly going to get some gains there down the straightaway.
The Panos
Big long straight.
Yeah, the Panos does not have great speed. The Nissan GTR, mentioned several times, actually has tremendous speed. However, I think Rich Roman and teammate Thomas Schubeck have really added some real wing on that thing. Oh, as we have somebody lagged out.
Oop. Somebody frozen there. Yep, there we
It
go.
would either be Ryan Schleif or John
You know what?
Cuppet.
It was Schleif. Oh, what a shame. I've had such a great race. Boy, what a shame. And Cuppet is still running there. 10.
Well, unfortunately, the hits keep coming here, folks. So if you are tuned into this broadcast, don't feel bad if you have somewhere to go. We're going to hang in because that's our job and we love to do it. For you guys out there on track that review the broadcast, of course, most of our viewership comes from rebroadcast. Don't hesitate to go ahead and flip forward a little bit on that Twitch rebroadcast. Thanks for watching as much as you do.
Yeah, you know, I'm just taking a look here at Aaron Parsons' times, and ever since that battle that he had with Sportelli, he has not been able to get back down to the 44s that he was used to, and he's running pretty much in the 45s now. So I don't know what happened there, but that battle might have taken something out of him.
Yeah, I was just looked at the exact same thing, and in the meantime, Alex White, just in whatever sector he just completed there, he's 3 tenths up on his sector 2, 3 tenths up on his best lap, which is something like a 43.4. I mean, that Alex White is putting the burners to it here.
Yeah, and his last lap was a 43.7, so he's definitely standing on the pedal.
Well, it has to be said, of course, Alex White has tremendous speed, but I wonder, should we have had, well, no disconnects, just how this race would have played out otherwise. Of course, there would have been a lot more traffic for Alex White to have to work through, particularly early on, and be slowed up by. So I don't think there's any question that gap would have been much, much wider. And of course, anything can happen out there on track with a field full of cars. So Alex White certainly making in some inroads, but I think also at the same time getting a little bit of luck with all those disconnects, as of course anybody still managing to circulate around this track has as well.
Yeah, it would have
lucky
been a much
there,
different race. John out in front, or with Aaron, I think it would have been a completely different outlook on the race. And with you, David, I mean, you had some great pace there, so it would have been a completely different picture we're watching.
Yep, I'd love to still be out there fighting for it. But I tell you, Alex looks like he's flying, but I think Ezra's kind of responded a bit too. The gap's still hovering right at 10 seconds. So shame he lost, like I said, 4 or 5 seconds there with the Sportelli fight. But I think Ezra's still, he's not giving up yet, that's for sure.
Well, I tell you, taking a look
Yeah,
at
that Sportelli fight definitely
so
cost Aaron, because he's picked up 4 seconds over Sportelli in the last 4 laps.
So,
yeah,
taking a look at some of those lap-to-lap times, I was actually a little surprised to see Al Merriman dip into the mid-44s himself. Now, I hadn't seen Al Merriman anywhere in the 44s ever over the course of a couple weeks of practice, so I think he's coming to understand a little bit how to get around this Paul Ricard circuit, and in that Panos specifically. So Al Merriman really putting on charge, and I think he might have something for Rich Roman here, and that is saying something, because let's face it, Rich Roman, typically a guy that will have speed on Al Merriman.
Yeah, and Al may be benefiting a little. He may be just close enough to be picking up some draft to help him down the straights too. And then looks like he's really hooked up through the twisty sections. Though Al looks very solid. The car's not moving around very much. You know, he's right on the grippy line there. He's really driving that thing well. Look how steady he is out of that last corner. That's the grip goes away at the exit of that corner, and he's just rock solid.
Yeah, he's having a great ride tonight.
Very difficult to pick up that acceleration coming off that last corner for sure. So, an interesting battle brewing as this gap has remained pretty static here over the last couple laps. Let's make sure that we don't miss any of the drivers that are remaining on track. Ooh, I thought I had dropped there for a second, but I didn't. So it is Eiran Parsons out front now to the tune of some 9-10 seconds, something like that. John Sportelli runs second now. John Sportelli has yet to make a second pit stop, so taking those stints very deep is John Sportelli. Alex White is beginning to close. We'll check up on that action here before too long. Rich Roman now runs in that fourth position. We saw him, we saw Al Merriman running just behind him, of course. Marty Wren has taken over the sixth position. I believe that he is currently on the same stops as the rest of the guys, except for John Sportelli. Matt Taylor runs in seventh, and quite a boon here for Matt Taylor, benefiting really. He was a bit back in the pack, but due to these disconnects, finds himself in seventh. Thomas Schubeck runs eighth and is now in front of Jonathan Cuppet again, so I don't know if there was some pit stop shuffling that has gone on there, but anyway, that is a fight we will check back on. And Sergio Calderon finds himself off track now. I don't know if he is locked up or has done some damage to the motor, but in any event, Sergio Calderon, the car is not moving. That's not what you want.
I don't hear any engine sounds from it either.
So, tough break, and we could be down to only 9 cars continuing to run this Paul Ricard circuit here tonight. So,
yeah, there we go. He's out with an engine, Sergio.
Yeah, he must have just cooked it because he was sort of running by himself there.
Well, that is actually interesting. Now, I didn't happen to see a ton of damage to that Lister Storm, and I tell you, they can be a little fragile with the motors on those things. Now, I haven't checked in on the temperature here for quite a while, but it's still very hot, so there's every possibility that he has just suffered some engine failure. I tell you one more thing regarding that. If he's suffering some engine degradation, it could be happening to Eiran Parsons too.
Yeah, I got to think that they were going to share setups. You know, I'm sure Sergio is benefiting from teammate Eiran Parsons, and we're still running 110 degrees track temp and a 92 ambient out there.
Well, the fight for 8th continues to heat up now, and it does look like Jonathan Cuppet has a little bit of speed over Thomas Schubeck. We saw Jonathan complete that pass before the last pit stop rotation, so we'll see if he can manage to do it again.
Yeah, Thomas looks like he's got his hands full out there. The car's weaving around a little bit, and it looks like it's pushing on the corners for him. But you know, Cuppet looks pretty smooth at this point.
I'll tell you guys, Alex White is now approaching John Sportelli. It'll be interesting to see how this fight goes. Much as I don't want to choose sides, yeah, it'd be nice if we kind of even things out a bit, I guess. Although you hate to see him do that.
So it looks like Jonathan Cuppet did get a pretty good run on Thomas Schubeck. Thomas Schubeck went ahead and gave him the flash to get on down the road, so Thomas Schubeck not contesting that position at the moment. And the aforementioned Alex White, John Sportelli battle now looks like it is in the final corner of this lap.
Well, Alex got a run already. Boy, this is not a good place to go side by side, I can tell you that, though. Yep, Alex thinks better of it.
Well, we'll see if it is turn to turn.
Oh, we may get the position on the inside here, though.
We'll see if it is turn to turn alike. If John Sportelli manages to alex Alex White for as long as he did Eiran Parsons.
Ooh, not much grip on those curbs out there. I can tell you where Alex just ran over.
Well,
this is another tricky place to get the power down over that little crest.
Well, I suspect Alex White will make pretty short work. He is showing just tremendous pace down that front straight here all of tonight. Actually, it looks to be about the fastest on track. The majority of the runners, and of course that Aston Martin, classified as a power car, and for good reason.
Yeah, that looked pretty effortless.
So not too much time lost.
No fight there.
In Alex White's quest for the lead of this opening event. Now it is Al Merriman continuing to pick up time on Rich Roman and continuing to show a little bit of pace over the Nissan GTR. And you mentioned
that was about a 1.5 second gap.
Speed down the straight. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that was about a 1.5 second gap before, and it is definitely less than that now.
Yeah, looking at about 1 second there of track time. So, an interesting fight going on here, and of course an interesting development with Alex White beginning to gain ground on the lead of this race.
Yeah, they're down to about 9 seconds apart now, and they're still, if I've got it right, we still have 34 laps left.
And guys, I need to take just a quick break, so we'll keep it on Al here just for, oh, give me 90 seconds or so, fellas.
Well, Al sure is having a good run here tonight. It's good to see that, especially having his teammate drop out. And, you know, sorry so many complete teams have dropped out tonight, David.
Yep. Yeah, it is a shame. Yeah, it's tough to take, you know, when you're so much anticipation, the new season, and that, you know, especially this race got put off for a week, and so you're all kind of hyped up for it, and then have this kind of thing happen. It's just, you know, the nature of the game, but it's definitely disappointing, and which got to get past it and move on to the next race, though. And like you said, there very few people have two cars running, which means the team championship that can turn very quickly. So even you know, the drivers' championship maybe you know, Eiran and Alex. Of course, Alex is going to drive the full season, but Eiran's going to score some good points here on his rivals. But team championship certainly can be made up in you know, one more race, and that can completely reverse.
Yeah, you know, it looks like, you know, Roman, you know, Rich and Schubeck are in a pretty good position here. They're, you know, they've got both their cars right at this point still on track.
Yep, they are the only two, aren't they? The only complete team still running. And that's, you know, worst case, you know, assuming everybody stays in here, worst case scenario is 9th place points. So that's solid team points for sure.
You know, and I'm sure they're communicating to each other, and I'm sure Rich is saying, "You just bring it on home."
Yep, stick
bring
with
it
it.
On home. We're in the points. Now, as Brad mentioned, it sure would be interesting, you know, to see. I mean, Alex is down a 9-second gap now. Is that Lister going to be suffering from temp wear on the engine?
Well, I'm sure Eiran is very aware of it. I'm sure he's paying attention and shifting appropriately. You know, Sergio may have different shift points, especially on the downshift. As I proved, you can do quite a bit of damage if you shift just how aggressively you downshift, and of course on the upshift. Lister's got a lot of torque, so you can shift pretty early. So I'm sure he's looking at it, and I don't know about cooling for sure. I think most guys guys would start most of these races, considering how the weather can change from one extreme to the other over the course of the race. I would assume most guys start with the radiator wide open, especially on a long event like this. So I'm sure he's watching it. To be honest with you, I just don't know how fragile that engine is.
Well, I just jumped on board with Eiran here, and he might be in engine management mode, because it does sound like he is short shifting the car right now.
Huh, interesting. And I'll tell you that he has actually just gained a little time on Alex White too. He just gap was right at 8 seconds. Now it's back up to 9 again. So I didn't see if Alex made a mistake or if Eiran just had a really good lap there. But it's certainly stabilized. It's not coming down the way it was before.
And I had noticed the same thing
No.
as well, so yeah, and I'd noticed the same thing as well, that gap is beginning to stabilize. And Eiran Parsons, in fact, has been running pretty good lap times, it has to be said. So I suspect part of that could have to do with Alex White pushing just like a demon there, coming right out of that second stint pit. I suspect also that Eiran Parsons really must have made some type of error on his pit stop, which is extremely unusual. So I suspect that there's still a little bit of time to be gained for Eiran Parsons in those pits.
Yep, and I'll tell you, Eiran has been in the 44s now in the last 3 laps. 43.9, 44 flat, and a 43.7. So he is he's found a little bit of extra pace there, a little motivation maybe.
Yeah, I suspect that's the case. And you guys mentioned I was back on for just a couple seconds there about the Panzerfaust. I think they're still Panzerfaust Racing, Rich Roman, Thomas Schubeck. What a coup for those guys. Because honestly, I don't think that they really had the best outright lap-to-lap pace really in this Nissan GTR around here. So we saw Rich Roman up there in 6th place, struggling goodbye John Houston early, but it did look like a lot of guys behind him also may have had pace on Rich Roman. So what a nice opening. Hey, in order to win a championship, you have to have luck along the way too. That goes without question. So you have to drive well and have luck, and this could be the event that kicks them off right here for season 23 toward that team title.
Yeah,
it sure is a nice kickoff.
Yeah, easiest way to pass someone is if they leave the race. And I'll tell you, Eiran Parsons has either picked up the pace or Alex is running into some sort of problem, because now the gap's up to over 10 seconds. And I think it's a combination of the two, to be honest with you. I think last couple laps Alex has been in the low 44s, Eiran's been down in the 43s. So something's changing here. Eiran's either gotten some motivation, maybe Alex is getting a little bored. Something's going on, but Eiran's certainly responding to that closing gap.
Well, I'll tell you this, David, the temperature has come down very slightly, very marginally, about probably 1 degree centigrade, a couple 3 degrees Fahrenheit, but that can make quite a bit of difference. Engine health really starts to wear about the 95 and above mark. If that temperature has come down in line, he can continue to push a little bit harder. So perhaps he sees on his telemetry that temperature coming down a little bit, and or he figures he has managed the engine health well enough to this point to be able to push a little bit harder. It is that gap from 4th place Rich Roman to Al Merriman, which we continue to watch and have some interest in. That gap has really not gone anywhere either. So Al Merriman, it has to be said, driving fantastically consistently and holding great pace to Rich Roman. What a fight.
Yeah, and John Sportelli just went into the pits for finally making his stop, and I think it's going to be very close. Those guys are going to come out. They're going to be right back in the fray. Of course, John will have some fresh tires, but I think it's going to be very close where these guys come out, and it's going to be we may have a 3-way fight on our hands.
That's going to
only 9 cars running. That's something to be excited about.
That's going to be good to see, and of course that will be John Sportelli's final pit stop, and so he's going to be good the rest of the way. Where they come out on track after this is the positions that they're going to be running here and fighting it out till the end. So quickly. It is Eiran Parsons still out front. Sorry, guys. Alex White does hold down that second position. Rich Roman is in third, followed closely by Al Miramon. John Sportelli does rejoin in fifth place. I believe Marty Eiran is going to be very close to his bumper. And indeed, that is going to be a fight that is joined. Marty Eiran will take over that position, at least temporarily.
Marty goes by. How about that? I think Marty's still got a stop to make, of course, but yeah, it's about 30 seconds to the Al Miramon Rich Roman. I thought it was going to be closer than that.
So it is Matt Taylor now holding down the 7th position. Jonathan Cuppett is in 8th, and I believe that is Thomas Schubeck in 9th. That is going to do it for your runners at the moment. 9 runners. Unfortunate luck tonight, but we're going to take what we get and bring you the action till the end.
Yeah, Marty's on lap 24 of that of his current stint, so Marty's going to be pulling in very shortly.
Indeed. In fact, we'll probably see John Sportelli pretty quickly diminish that gap to Marty Eiran. So hopefully, if you're John Sportelli, you're hoping that he comes into the pits before you get cost too much time behind Marty Eiran. And another guy where two phrases don't go together are Marty Eiran and willingness to let somebody by easily.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is not taking anything away from him. Now, I think
statesmen of the league here are both very quite stubborn.
Boy, oh boy, Brad, you're really calling these guys out tonight.
Well, Jack, I call them as I see them. I don't try to play favorites here in the broadcast booth. We should know that by the broadcast on Monday nights. I've even called out David Poole once or twice. But
hey, sure. I'm loving it. I'm loving it tonight.
Now, it should be said also that that's not necessarily to take anything away from the guys. Obviously, hard racers, generally pretty darn clean racers too. So let's not take anything away from them in that regard. Now we'll stick on this.
Well, here we go again. We're going at it again with Parsons and Sportelli, but this time Parsons gets through in a pretty neat and timely fashion. But he was probably just crapping himself, thinking, "Here we go again."
Well, Sportelli's ears were burning. He went ahead and let Eiran on by that time, and so no harm, no foul there, and yeah. So, let's quickly get you caught up on the continuing battle between Al Miramon and Rich Roman. Now, David, you could probably speak from experience, just the amount of concentration it takes to maintain these types of gaps. I mean, after all, these guys are not trying to maintain a particular gap. They are running as hard as they possibly can to try to gain advantage on one another. And these guys have been doing it lap after lap for, Jesus, I don't know, 45 minutes? So quite an
these guys, they've been less than 2 seconds apart for the majority of this race. I mean and you're right. We're getting late into this race. I mean, it starts wearing on you. 62 laps in. I mean, that's 2/3 of the way in. It's certainly it's hard to keep it focused. And I'll tell you, when I was behind John Ludden and Eiran Parsons before that, I mean, those guys were a car length apart the whole time. That's really takes a lot of concentration, especially on a track that's got a lot of high speeds on it and very unforgiving. If you make just the smallest mistake in some of those sweeping turns, get just a little bit off the groove, and you lose a lot of time. So that's a lot of focus required there.
Now, you both you guys are top-notch drivers. What's the favorite position here? Would you rather be chased, or would you rather be chasing somebody after all these laps?
Put me out front. I always want to be out in front of the guy.
Yep, no matter, unless you're talking about somewhere like Daytona where you're going to the last person, if you're really close and the last person drafting may have an advantage, but yeah, any other time it's always better to be in front. Sometimes it's easier to go faster when you're behind, when you got a rabbit out there to chase, but Yeah, I think most people would prefer to have the position and have to lose it rather than have to gain it.
And we did see quickly, Alex White actually has closed that gap again a little bit. We'll check back on that quickly. But to finish up that thought, you're absolutely right, David, that once those positions do change, if they do, then that can be a little bit uncomfortable once you do finally make that pass and get out front. And we'll have to see if Al is affected by that, should he happen to pick up that position either through pit stops or on track. Rich Roman continuing to struggle with the rear end on that Nissan.
Yeah, and I would think the Panoz is going to have a fuel use advantage. And with the other battle there, I think Alex is at 7 seconds. That's right where you can start catching little glimpses of it, and that can give you that little bit of extra concentration to push just that little extra bit harder sometimes. You get them in sight, and sometimes it's easier to close that gap rather than just looking at the split times.
Well, you know what? And those split times, it might be what Eiran Parsons has looked at, because he dropped almost a second off his fastest times in the last couple of laps. So he's dropping a little bit in his lap time. So he's got to be watching that and seeing Alex, pulling up behind him.
Yeah, inside of 7 seconds now.
Well, I certainly do expect Eiran to pop off a better pit stop this time around. I really think that last pit stop was some type of an anomaly. Perhaps he had trouble with that pit lane entrance and got it a little wrong. Actually, that 5 or 6 seconds could easily be due to actually having the rear end swap around on him coming through that pit lane. But in any event, we will find out here pretty shortly. These guys are due to make their stops, and we're going to find out just where this whole remaining field will shake out for our final dash to the checkered flag.
Yep, Eiran is on his 20th lap since he stopped, and if he's dividing it evenly, which he did on the first one, he stopped on 22, so I would think he's doing 22 and 23 lap stints, so we should see him coming in for his final stop here in the next 2 or 3 laps.
Yeah, and I wonder, David, if Eiran, having the benefit of hindsight, might have elected to do some type of different strategy. Perhaps not, but boy, I gotta think 22 laps. I don't think he would have been able to knock out a pit stop, but boy, if you can manage to come in for a splash of fuel and about 20 liters at the end, you pick up a lot of time all in one whack.
Yeah, well, I think that's what Sportelli has planned here. Just based on when Eiran has stopped, and I'll tell you, his pit stop times, knowing how miserly that Lister is, I gotta think that he put more gas in than and actually I had thought about doing it. I put a couple extra laps of fuel in just in case, the weather, you get a weather change or something like that. So he may have put in more than he needed the previous 2 stops, and now this last one is going to be even quicker.
That is actually a good point. Yep.
Yeah, it's a balance you got to find there. Depending on, and each car is a little different, but depending on how much time you lose, these aren't like Formula 1 cars. You don't lose a second for taking an extra, 7 or 8 liters of fuel. But you will get a little bit better lap times and a little bit less tire wear. So I guess you got to find that balance of what works for your car and what you think. It's nice to have a little bit of buffer there in terms of laps that you can do just in case there is a change in the weather or something unforeseen that happens. Maybe you can't get a blue light for your pit. Any number of things could happen. So typically you don't want to put the minimum amount of laps in just in case. Of course, Alex could be doing the same thing. So at this point, we just don't know.
Well, we will be watching.
Well, you made a good point earlier. That Alex, I'm on board with Alex right now, and he does have glimpses of Eiran out in front, and that seems to be propelling him forward.
Well, one thing we will keep a very close eye on, neither Rich Roman or Al Merriman have come in for their final stops yet, and this will, of course, be very key within this battle. And, boy, you get down to fighting for a podium, and the pressure's really on, so final stops coming for these guys with the possibility of a podium staring them right in the face, and I'm kind of curious to see who's going to blink here, possibly, and who exactly is going to gain the advantage over the other. This is going to be a battle I'm very interested in seeing for the final few laps here.
Yeah, the Merriman-Roman battle has just been I mean, these guys are on identical pace. See, and right now, though, Al has a bit of an advantage in that he could just kind of sit behind Rich, and as long as Rich isn't making any gaps, he can kind of short shift a little bit, maybe save some fuel if he gets close enough to get a little draft down the. Oh, here comes Al.
Al's in.
Careful. So you know, that may have been his plan. I'll just save as much gas as I can, and jump him in the pit stop. They're on the same. You know, it looks like positioning could be the key. Of course, the GTR will have a little bit of pace down the straight, so Al's going to need a little bit of a gap, just enough to get away from the draft. But Al certainly looks like he's got the lap times. He's not giving anything away to Rich, that's for sure.
Well, the rest of the field will be coming in here very shortly. So Eiran Parsons, in fact, has shown up on timing and scoring as entering the pits. So the rest of this field, such as they are, will be coming into the pits. Everybody will complete their stops for their final stint. And we're going to see how it goes. Now, looking at the temperature quickly, the track temperature has dropped a little bit more, so continuing to cool just ever so slightly out there. And we'll see how that plays a factor into these closing laps.
Yep, and Alex is on his 21st lap, so it looks like maybe his last two stints will be the shorter ones for him. I would certainly assume he's going to come in now. It wouldn't make much sense to stay out any longer than he needs to get those fresh tires on, where Eiran will have the advantage if he doesn't. If Alex doesn't come in, that Eiran, at least for a couple laps, will start gaining some time.
You know, I will say, early on in Alex White's career, he did tend to make some of those types of mistakes, perhaps running a little bit too long on worn tires, but not so recently. I think by this time, Alex White, plenty skilled and versed in knowing what kind of time that he's given up on those worn tires. But you're absolutely right. You never know. He certainly doesn't want to take it too long.
Well, Rich has stayed out, but he had a lot of trouble on that last corner before pit lane. Just struggled on that corner immensely, and I got to think he gave up a couple of seconds just on that corner alone. So Rich is staying out.
Well, another guy well-versed in trying to make sure he doesn't give up too much time on those worn tires, Rich Roman. So a little surprising, I think, that he took it this long, but the Nissan GTR does not get good fuel, so he may have to get to a certain lap before he does come into the pits. This could be advantage Al Merriman. And I don't know if we can expect to see any fireworks if they do come out right together, but it's always a possibility. So, oh, I thought I locked up for a second.
We're on lap 68. Alex is on lap 68 now, so I'm sure that all the cars can go 22 laps. So, and now it's just kind of your personal choice of what you want to do. And you know, when do you want to try and have fresher tires at the end? I got to think though that anybody who stays out longer, I mean, you know, you're going to lose up to a second or so. Uh-oh. I just lost timing on Alex. You know you're going to lose up to a second or so on these worn tires, so hard to think that there is a big advantage for doing that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't had timing when viewing Alex on track the whole race, actually.
Okay, well I had it and it disappeared while I was watching it, so well, 1 minute and 10 seconds. That is well, that should be right at what a pit stop will take.
Well, keep us updated, Jack, on to when Rich Roman enters the pits. Let's make sure we get you where they're running at the moment, as some of these pit stops have cycled through. Alex White does provisionally have that first place. We'll see if you can continue to make inroads into Eiran Parsons as we approach final stops. Rich Roman, we know he's in third. John Sportelli has picked up fourth place after that Al Merriman pit stop. Indeed he has.
Yeah,
so
I think Alex is coming in. Yep, here he
Alex
comes.
White in the
coming
pits.
So as we wait for that pit stop to complete quickly, we'll go through Jonathan Cuppett running 6th, Marty Wren in 7th, Thomas Schubeck in 8th, and Matt Taylor finds himself in 9th. Okay.
Well, I think you nailed it right on, David.
Down,
this is going to be really close.
You know, but it looks to me, fellas, like John Sportelli actually has gotten back out front of Al Merriman. So that fight which we thought was for the podium, I think, has gone away here, as we want to make sure we see Alex White, as we neglected to stay abreast of the pit stop rotation where everybody was at. So John Sportelli actually has reclaimed a position, it looks like.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Alex just went up on the jacks. No, his car, no, he's still on the jacks here, and yeah, Ezza is going to get by. Well, yep, 3 seconds. Here he comes down the straight. So Eiran will retake that position, but it is not by a lot. Wow. That is a lot closer than I thought it was going to be.
Well, Alex has got a real good picture of his tailpipe now.
Yeah, I think by the time they get, you know, this sorted out and Alex gets his tires up to temp, it's going to be maybe 6 or 7 seconds. So it's actually, I guess, a static gap. I certainly thought Eiran was going to gain time, but hey, Alex may have made up a second or so.
I think Alex might have suffered from a cut lap there when we dropped his timing. Yes, he did. He had a cut lap there when you lost his timing there.
And it's Rich still has a stop to make, right? Because he is right behind Alex. Yeah, he's still got.
Frankly, I'm shocked. I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, Rich.
I'm getting a lot of lag here all of a sudden. How about you fellas?
Got to come in yet. So, boy, Sportelli really picked up a lot of... oh, we just had a disconnect. And we just lost John Sportelli. And we lost another.
That would be David Poole. Well, I don't know how we managed to survive, Jack.
You're right. Well, I was just thinking the same thing, Brad. The only two who really don't matter, you know, not that we don't matter. Rich Roman just pulled into the pits. We seem to be doing just fine.
Yeah, quite a bummer there. So I have to say, as we'll go ahead and continue on here as best we can, I am just
you know, this has got to be the lightest field. You know, and gee, Brad, I've been doing GT1 coverage for, I don't know, a couple of years now, and this is the smallest field I've ever seen finish a race.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous, as Rich Roman is going to go up on the jacks himself, and I keep flicking back to timing and scoring here to see where Al Merrimon might be, but finish up my thought here as Al Merrimon is now approaching the last corner. I'm very shocked by the Alex White pit times. I don't understand quite how that's possible in the Aston over the Lister, but very well done.
Well, that's if he has enough fuel to finish.
So it looks like Rich Roman will get back out front of Al Merrimon, but Al Merrimon's going to have a head of steam here. And so it's going to be a very close battle indeed, and he's going to make a dive into the first turn complex. And those fireworks we were talking about, Jack, have indeed ensued. They're lighting off the Roman candles.
You know what? This is an intense battle for the whole race, and Al is coming back at him hard.
Let me tell you, Al's in real trouble if he can't get by him down this straight, because Rich Roman's tires will start to be getting a little hotter, have a little bit more grip. I don't think he's going to be able to do it, Jack.
You know, he's pulling them, but you know, it's going to be that break point, and boy, this is intense.
Going to be difficult to outbrake Rich Roman, particularly on the inside.
Wow, and I am surprised Al could hang on to that around on the outside there.
He's not going to here, unfortunately.
This is quite the battle we're watching here tonight. Holy jumping. They've been going at this thing for almost 3 hours now.
no doubt Alex White will probably make the pass here before too long. We'll make sure we bring in that.
Yeah, his gap's now down to 3.5 seconds. You know, he can see that car in front of him, and he is going for it. But that Al Merriman-Rich Roman fight is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think Al's going to have to be a little careful here. He does want to try to keep maybe a little bit back, unless he can for sure make the move here to preserve those tires just a little bit. I can tell you that as long as Rich is in front, he's not going to do too much to abuse those tires, because he knows Al is at a pretty big disadvantage trying to pass through any other corner through here around this track. So he will have a little bit of a tire advantage over Al Merriman.
Yeah, and Rich came off that last corner really well, you know, and put a little bit of a gap on him between him and Al. So Al's going to have a bit of a time reeling him back in on this time down the straight.
So it was John Sportelli we have lost as well. So indeed, this battle has turned into a battle for the podium.
You know, so we've got a battle for a battle for the total podium right now. Alex White just right around that 3-second mark to Eiran Parsons, and Rich Roman and Al Merriman are fighting tooth and nail, you know, as we go into lap 72.
Well, the hits keep coming, Jack, as most of the field is involved in direct fights for position, as Matt Taylor has once again reattached to the back bumper of Thomas Schubeck. So Matt Taylor has made the pass 3 times now on Thomas Schubeck, and he's going to be looking to make it a 4th here, I think, as Thomas keeps reclaiming that position out of the pit stops, but Matt Taylor is finding his on-track speed to get back by. So,
you know, and you know, that's a real good drive for these two guys. And somebody else we haven't talked a lot about him is Jonathan Cuppett. You know, he has just run a steady race the whole evening, got himself in great points position, driving that Corvette to his advantage, and I haven't seen him make a lot of mistakes tonight.
No, indeed. In fact, that's, well, you need to keep it clean, right? We all know that, and I guess stay connected too. That always helps.
That seems to be one of the key issues, is staying connected tonight.
Oh, Al taking it very wide, and I think pushing just a little too bit, and now has put himself in a pretty desperate situation, dropping a couple seconds off of Rich Roman now.
Yeah, just a little quick.
I was going to say overdriving
just
a little bit for Al Merriman at this point, Jack.
You know, well, he's pushing, he's going for it, and I can't blame Al at all. But just a little update there. You know, Alex White has dropped his times down into the 43s, and he is really getting a full view of Eiran Parsons at just over 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, he'll make the pass down the back straight. That's shortly. Jonathan Cuppett is in from the 5th position, actually, so didn't see that coming. We lost Jonathan Cuppett's pit stop rotation, but in any event, I think that there is a pretty good possibility he will give up a position or two, one of them being to Marty Eiran, who is now coming through the 3rd sector of this course. So a late position here, change here for Jonathan Cuppett, who I believe will slot back in the 7th position. We'll keep an eyeball out for that.
Yeah, you know, Jonathan should get out in front of Schubeck as Schubeck is coming down the back straight, so he should be fine. He'll get out in front there and should be able to hang on to that 6th spot.
Let's see, Alex 3/10 up on his best time. somehow.
Well, he is pushing extremely hard. You know, as I mentioned earlier, did he just, you know, do the math and just take the fuel he needs to get across the finish line? You know, it wouldn't be the first time I've heard Alex say, oh, I had to coast through the last corner to make it to the finish line.
Well, certainly, he won't have much more fuel on board than he needs. No question about that. So indeed, Jonathan Cuppet does slot back into the 6th position. Matt Taylor continues to try to reel in Thomas Schubeck here for the 7th position, but it looks like Matt Taylor has actually slipped off the back of Thomas Schubeck. So Matt Taylor, I think, making some type of mistake trying to push up to Thomas, and now finds himself well back. Unfortunately, we don't have the timing and scoring, but that gap looks to me to have opened up about 10 seconds. And indeed, we do see some pretty significant damage to Matt Taylor on that left front fender. So Matt Taylor perhaps lucky to escape terminal damage to that saline.
Yeah, Matt's last couple of lap times have dropped off by 2 seconds a lap. He's now running into the 47s. You know, Matt might just be suffering from fatigue. You know, after 3 hours, he might just say, boy, I got to just hang in here. Of course, his team is going to have a good finish.
Yeah, it looks like he has gone off again. Now, he has pretty good speed on, it did appear, on Thomas Schubeck, but the laps actually well and truly are starting to wind down now. So I don't know that he's going to have time to recover, and Thomas Schubeck might just hang on for that 8th position.
Yeah, Thomas is having a really good run tonight.
So it is Al Merrimont now. I think Al has either abused the tires a little bit more than he'd like, or suffered a little bit of overdriving a little bit here, lap after lap, after spending so much time and concentration trying to keep that gap close. And now it's finding a little difficult to kind of reorder himself and refocus here. So now it's dropped off about 5 seconds to Rich Roman. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything here, because it only takes a very small mistake from that guy in front to quickly find yourself back in their spot.
Yeah, you're right there, because one little mistake and those 5 seconds are going to disappear. And it's the same up front. I mean, we're down to 1.4 seconds between Alex White and Eiran Parsons now. 1.3, it's dropping.
Yeah. I see we have an update.
So,
I finally glanced over at chat. Looks like Matt Taylor, I'm sorry, did take incorrect tires, and so suffered from some early tire degradation. I can only imagine it would be horrible on that saline. Either the softs or any other combination of tires except the hards would be bad for the saline.
Yeah, we're still running. You know, it's come down a few degrees, you know, Brad, but not a lot. You know, we're at 107 track and 92 ambient, so, you know, the track temps come down a little bit, but not a lot.
So I'm just trying to get a sense here. So quickly running down here to just 10 laps to go. So finally the completion of this 3-hour event in sight with all the happenings tonight and unfortunate events. I don't think that the end can come quite soon enough for the drivers remaining on track. Still some work to do, of course. and perhaps a few tense moments coming up as these drivers do try to contend for these final positions.
Yeah, they're gonna drive it right to the end, but you know, we all like the big grids. We all like to be involved in traffic, and that's one thing they're missing tonight.
So let's see, did we see that there was an update on the chat? Perhaps that Alex White did jump onto the softs?
Well, you know, that might not surprise me.
Well, we actually do have a few Twitch viewers who have very gamely hung in there. I'm very impressed by our viewers here, Jack. They have gone above and beyond tonight, no question about it. And I'm sure that they'll give us an update on that Alex White tire situation if they know what it is. So looks like we did have an update,
yeah.
And it did look like it was softs for Alex White, at least for all four sides. Okay. Still holding extremely good times given the temperatures.
Yeah, and at the pace he is pushing, is he going to be able to maintain that for, you know, another 12 laps?
No. I'll go ahead and call it.
And you did.
I don't know. Well, I guess he was thinking, well, I'll get by him on the straight, and he won't be able to do anything in the corners, I guess is what he was thinking. Because otherwise there shouldn't be any way to be able to hold speed for that long in this temperature. So and
well, his lap times is just dropped into the 44s after running, you know, looks like about 7 laps into 43s. He just dropped into the 44.
But you know, still in all, it you know, it wasn't a full stint, so it's not like he had to run 30 laps but still too far to go.
Well, yeah, you know, nothing gambled, nothing lost. So it's I like it when, you know, I see the drivers trying to be creative and trying to get an advantage. It's you know, sometimes they have to make that gamble.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and I'll never fault another driver for doing that in terms of a strategy or what have you. Ooh, Matt Taylor, unfortunately, has slipped back to the 9th position. It looks like he has gone actually 2 laps down. I did see him flick into the pit lane again here late, so perhaps having to repair some damage on that saline. Checking quickly back to that Al Merriman gap. It has slipped off to a tune of about 6 seconds, so Al Merriman, some work to do here late if he expects to get that final podium spot.
Well, you know, I almost get the feeling that Al has said, you know, it looks like 4th tonight. Hate to say that he's, you know, settled into that position, but he is, you know, now up to a 6-second gap, and we're only looking at 11 laps left, so I don't know if he can pick up that time in these 11 laps.
Yeah, certainly it looks like it'd have to take a Rich Roman mistake to help him out, which is possible. Of course, toward the end of these very long events, with the kind of heat we had, there will be some guys having to manage some engine health, no doubt, as well. So that can always play a part, and you just never know, Jack, sometimes. It can be pretty easy to, in the midst of racing traffic and yourself and the track and the 3-hour time length, of just missing the total amount of fuel that you need to. So you just never know.
Yeah, you know, and I got to think that maybe, you know, Parsons and Calderon, maybe Calderon got a little bit of a mixed message. Maybe had the rad closed up, you know, a little too much for the track conditions, and maybe just got bad communication, and that's why he blew his engine. And Eiran is still running hard. But I do see the gap now opening up, you know, a little bit. So Alex White is not being able to maintain the pace he had a little earlier, and he's not really in Eiran.
Well, we pretty much all know where they run by this point, but let's make sure nobody is confused about it, as Eiran Parsons does continue to very slightly open that gap over Alex White over the last lap or so. Rich Roman, of course, does hold down that third spot. Al Miramon, as you recall, has slipped off 6 or 7 seconds. Marty Eiran now holds down the 5th position. And Jonathan Cuppet does continue to run 6th after his stop. He came out in 6th and continues to run 6th. He looks to be good to go for that position the rest of the way, unless he has some help in front. Thomas Schubeck looks like he will hold down the 7th position over... yes, Matt Taylor, who finds himself yet another lap in arrears to Thomas Schubeck. So, there you have it. A very eventful race, Jack. One kind of for the books. I don't think this is a race that's going to be forgotten anytime soon, though there are many drivers in this race that would like to forget it. And just horrible luck. It's hard for me not to keep going back to it. And the difficulties after all the preparation and everything to have it go so wrong for so many guys is just so unfortunate.
Yeah, you know, you took the thought right out of my head there. You know, it's a heartbreaker to lose these first and last events of the season, Brad. I mean, everybody gears up in a big way for these feature events, and it's just got to be crappy to, you know, drop out early in one of these things.
Well, I don't usually try not to insert the word I too much, but I recall myself having quite a lead there at the Indianapolis road course with 4 laps to go. Well and truly in the lead and disconnecting with those 4 laps to go. That was, speaking of heartbreak, that was one of them.
Well, you know, poor old John Ludden, you know, that's got to be a heartbreaker for him. I know he's saw him up on the chat board there earlier. He's watching the race, and good on you, John. But you know what? With the speed that you've shown and the consistency, you're going to be right in there. This is just one race out of 10. There's a lot of racing left in the season, and I got to put that out to all the drivers here. It's only 1 out of 10, guys. Don't get down. You still got lots of time. There's a lot of good racing left in the season.
Well, certainly, and let's not forget that there will be guys within that top 16 when these unfortunate disconnects started to happen who will still garner points. Now, unfortunately, John Luden was the first of many to disconnect, so he is not going to collect any championship points here tonight. But quite a few of the drivers that have will at least get some payoff for their effort here tonight, and a small consolation to all the others, I know. But
yeah, you know, and I can't help thinking that, you know, the big winners here tonight, you know, I know we've got a winner, and you know, if he can keep it together, and Eiran Parsons or Alex White, still got a bit of time left for something to happen, is Rich Roman and Thomas Schubeck. We've got the only team still running, and as far as team points go, they're going to get a boatload of team points tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the luck of the draw or what have you, but I can tell you right now that Rich Roman would not have finished third in this race without the help. So, and like I was saying earlier, you got to take what you get. And you know what? You certainly aren't going to trade it in. Rich Roman isn't going to give it up, and he shouldn't. So, you're absolutely right. And I'm fascinated now to see those guys in a very good position here early, the kind of work they're going to put in over the next couple races. If they're going to go ahead and get some extra laps out there on track and try to hold. I mean, the Nissan GTR is going to be a very good car at most of the tracks that they go to tonight. As you see Rich very loose there through the technically the third corner, but So I'll be interested to see over the course of the next couple of races just how much work they put in. Of course, Rich Roman looks to be like he's going to be carrying a little bit of winter's weight ballast as well over the next couple of weeks, or next week anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, a nice little bit of a boost, you know, to the team, you know, to come out with this many points at the start of the season. So it could be just the boost that they need to energize them and get them out on track, practicing a little more, and keep them in the hunt for the team championship.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a total race timer, so if we do end up coming a couple laps short, then that's a possibility. We know it won't go more than 90, but there's always a possibility it could come up a couple laps short, so we'll have to keep an eyeball out for that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do some math here quick, and you might be right on that one. We might be a lap less if we come in on time.
That's some quick math work, Jack. I like it.
Well, that's simple math, Brad, and that's about all I'm good for. It comes from counting pennies, not dollars. So Parsons through to start lap 85.
Yeah, and all over but the crying now, again, barring any fuel shortages or anything like that. And they can crop up. I suspect that these guys are pretty well sorted. But
I think so too, you know. Yeah, I think so. You know, Alex is coming up to some lap traffic, but at this point, everybody's going to move out of the way. They're pretty much in the positions they're going to finish. You know, we got 7 seconds between Parsons and White. We got 7 seconds between Roman and Merriman. So the race is all but in the books. All these guys have to do now is drive at home.
Well, congratulations to all the guys that do end up finishing this one. It has been a pretty grueling night. But you know what? In GT1, that's kind of the way we like it. We like to really find out who's going to have the best overall pace, and well, you're sure going to find out over the course of a 3-hour race length. And I'm just so impressed all these guys have the opportunity to get out there and go through this serious test. This is, you know, this kind of driving isn't for lightweights. This is the, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say these are the manly men, but they're, you know, they really get out there and they like the challenge. They like the test. So congratulations to them.
You know, and a test it is. You know, to try and stay consistent for 3 hours is a testament to the practice and that they put in. So, you know, good on them. They're taking their hobby seriously, and obviously they do it for fun, and that's why these feature races are so popular.
Well, I was going to mention a little earlier, we're watching Al Merriman drive around. We're on board with him now. I got to tell you, Al, I shouldn't say that Al is off the pace relative to the field. I did earlier, but I should make a caveat to that. Now, Al did have to take a little bit of time off. There are a couple, 3-4 seasons ago, and I think that really did kind of affect his pace. And I should not have been so quick, really, to do that, because Al does put down some very nice races, given the opportunity to get the practice laps in, and he has been getting quicker and quicker again over the last few seasons. So he has challenged for more than one podium here over the last couple seasons. So I want to make sure that I give Al his due.
Well, he's looking really smooth out there tonight. I got to hand him that. I mean, he's put in a good, smooth race. He's had some good battles going on there. You know, spends a lot of time, you know, making sure we've got a place, to race. So good for Al. Had a great race. Good way to start. And we know Al's not going to be happy with all the technical issues we've had, but he's got to be happy with the way he drove tonight.
I sure would be.
And all the guys that are finishing this race have got to be happy with the way they've driven. Every one of those guys has driven a decent, clean, competitive race.
So, as we can imagine, Eiran Parsons is going to work more than just a couple more laps. We'll have to postulate a little bit onto Eiran's very fine start to this GT1 championship. Now, it should be noted as well, Alex White in a substitute role here tonight, and not really fully committed to the GT1 season, but after this fine start, you have to wonder if Alex White might not turn some attention to this GT1 class as well. For the balance of the season, of course, very late start times for him racing out of the UK, but still in all, it would be good to see him in the GT1 class competing out there week after week.
Well, we all know he is a race junkie, so it wouldn't surprise me, if he gets a taste of a couple of sub-podiums, that we're going to see a lot more of this guy.
Of course, preparation time always a concern for sure, so you definitely do have to be committed if you expect to be able to get out there and compete on a week-to-week basis, particularly in two classes.
Yeah, that is a big commitment, to run both classes and get the practice time in. I personally, Brad, I don't know how the guys do it. Obviously, they're very good at driving because, boy, I don't know how they can put in two classes and be as competitive as they are.
Well, we should look forward just a little bit to our next week's events in Adelaide. Now, don't have too much time to talk about it, I don't think, as our lap should be winding down, but Adelaide is going to be a very tricky circuit where absolutely anything can happen, and the very barest of mistakes can end in a race-ending wreck. But I was watching Eiran Parsons drive around there, and I was thinking, that Lister Storm is not going to be as good at Adelaide as it probably will be around this place, and add on top of that 40 kilograms for this race win, and he could struggle just a little bit in that Lister Storm on a track I know that he likes a lot.
Well, you had mentioned the Lister is not as powerful as some of the other cars here, so that extra success ballast could play a big factor in next week's race.
Well, I tell you what the Lister Storm really doesn't like, and that is low speed front end grip. And boy, Adelaide really is all about low speed front end grip. Add on top of that 40 kilos, having driven the car myself, I know that it's bad to start with, and you add weight on top of that, it could be a real chore to get that thing around, and frankly a little ugly to drive. Add on top of that a lot of bumps around that Adelaide circuit, which Lister doesn't, well, I would say ordinarily doesn't like. Eiran Parsons seems to be taking plenty of curb tonight, but I wonder exactly how Eiran Parsons is going to manage that race, and if he's going to find the same type of success he has tonight. Oh, and Eiran Parsons does make a mistake, in fact. Don't think it's going to matter, but a little bit of a mistake.
No, he's got enough time. Yeah, he's got enough time. He can make a mistake or two, because if I'm not mistaken, we're only this is going to be lap 89, but if I'm got the timing right, this should be it.
And for that matter, Alex White, should he continue that, Aston Martin actually does not mind the weight as much, so should he look forward to maybe taking part in that Adelaide race as well? Could be actually still in line for a decent result, assuming that he does, of course, put the practice time in and come to grips with that Aston Martin with 30 kilos.
Yeah, now, he started way back in the field, so he's actually had a really decent run tonight. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, certainly. And looking a little bit further back through the field, Al Merriman in that 4th position now. That's a pretty good position to finish in, actually, if you want to go into the collect a lot of points and go into the next race with no weight. That's exactly the position you want to finish in. So Al Merriman will be right toward the front of this championship hunt, and in a car with no race for next week's race. And I tell you, weight not such as big a deal in the GT2 class compared to the GT1. So weight playing a bigger factor in this GT1 class.
Well, I gotta say, Brad, it was not the opener we were hoping for. A few more problems again on our restart tonight, but anybody watching, thanks for watching us tonight as we watch this race wind down. I got to remind you, we're run on donations here, so guys, dig in, throw a few bucks in, keep the league what it is, probably the greatest racing league in the world, NAGP, Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So throw us a few bucks. Keep your playground clean.
Oh, Matt Taylor has gone off again. We're just kind of flipping through the order and making sure everybody got some FaceTime, but Alex White has now lost a front clip, unfortunately. Oh,
yeah, Matt's just got to keep it together.
I suspect he'll go ahead and just struggle on for a couple more laps. Now, had he suffered some terminal failure there, I think that actually this will be the last couple corners for Eiran Parsons. And he has actually slowed significantly and let Al Merriman by. So he may be in a little bit of fuel conservation mode. I think at this point he will make it. Eiran is... Oh, I thought he was going to make a late dive to the pits. He could have rolled in by that time.
And that's
so
it.
Okay, so Eiran Parsons will take your season opener here at Paul Ricard. Alex White will come home to finish second. So a late gamble by Alex White on those softs didn't quite pay off, but a nice gamble nonetheless. And boy, this broadcaster was certainly kind of stumped as to those kind of times Alex White was able to put in. But now all things have become clear there. So Rich Roman looks like, assuming he'll keep it on track here for the last half lap, will finish in the 3rd position. And actually, while he's completing that lap, let's make sure that we get the guys who will finish a lap down. Marty Eiran looks like he is going to take 5th. Jonathan Cuppett should come around in 6th. Thomas Schubeck for 7th. And Matt Taylor, regardless of what he does now, will finish 8th.
Well, good effort by all the drivers tonight.
Yeah, Jack, and we will go ahead and dispense with the driver interviews tonight. We'll go ahead and wrap up pretty quickly as soon as the action concludes here, but big congratulations to Eiran Parsons, surviving not only the entire race, all the disconnects, but also a late race charge by Alex White. That was very well managed, and I wonder if Eiran Parsons might not even have been thinking, well, maybe this guy did some softs or something. Aaron's usually pretty good at puzzling that stuff out, but Rich Roman will cross the line for 3rd.
Yeah, and Eiran not only had late, fought off a late race challenge, but with John Ludden, he had a great early race battle going on as well.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. I hadn't even remembered that. That was a very intense affair, and, again, who knows what could have happened. I think we could have really... I mean, we had some pretty good action despite having 9 runners finish, Jack. So, Al Merriman will slot home in the 4th position, and that is going to do it. Again, folks, we're going to go ahead and go with the quick hook tonight and wrap up here quickly. I just cannot thank you enough for sticking around. You guys are real troopers. Jack, you as well, and David Poole, thank you so much for him coming in and helping out. And, you know, Jack, we're just going to go ahead and reset. Look forward to getting rid of these technical problems and get out to Adelaide.
Absolutely. Can't wait for next week. We'll see you all next week, folks.
Okay, so the broadcast will continue just a little longer here as... there we go. Okay, see you next time.